In the heart of the Arcadia Empire lies the prestigious sword family Cardenas, a formidable martial collective that maintains peace. Their 7 knighthoods each command a military force comparable to that of an entire nation. But the most elite unit of all is the Golden Dragon Knighthood, composed solely of the direct bloodline with their signature blonde hair and golden eyes. It is said the very blood of ancient dragons flows through their veins, just as their name implies. Here, young descendants from both the direct and branch families gather to awaken their latent supernatural power. At the Cardenas training grounds, everyone hones their skills, pushing their bodies to the absolute limit. A fierce sparring match erupts between a young prodigy and a determined female trainee. But while she is already struggling to keep up, her opponent remains perfectly composed and in control. She can't believe it. She thought they could win in a 2-on-1 fight, even against the legendary number 1. But her partner, the trainee ranked number 4, had already been taken out in a single, devastating heartbeat. The female trainee can only grit her teeth, her sword trembling under the sheer, overwhelming force of his spear. Suddenly, a blindingly fast strike she can't even perceive sends her screaming through the air. Now on the ground, she can only listen as he scoffs at their weakness, unable to believe they are true direct descendants. He looms over her with utter contempt, declaring that she isn't even worth his time. Her defeated partner is also forced to hear the ultimate insult. They're no different from the branch family trash. With an unshakable gaze, the number 1 trainee announces that this selection is over, and he is the victor. But this entire brutal display was being monitored from the Cardenas Young Dragon Knighthood headquarters. Inside, a high-ranking official notes that this year's batch of trainees possesses remarkable skill. The commander, Swordmaster Fabian, then poses a critical question. Who among them is worthy of the special grade? His subordinate gives a chilling answer, stating that while many are talented, only one truly possesses the qualifications. That person is number 1, William Cardenas, a monster who defeated numbers 2 and 4 without taking a single blow. The commander recalls that the defeated were also from the direct line, a fact his aide grimly confirms. When asked about the status of the others, he learns the branch families have been nearly wiped out. The commander notes that the wall of blood is not easily scaled, and at this ground, a trainee's number is the ultimate measure of power. This system is absolute, with number 1 signifying the strongest warrior among hundreds of trainees. Believing the matter settled, the commander declares there's no need for comparison this time around. But just as his subordinate moves to select William for the special grade, another knight interrupts, pleading for them to wait. Surprised by the sudden objection, the commander turns and demands a reason for the delay. The knight reveals a shocking variable. There is one peculiar branch member left whose performance must be seen before deciding. When the commander asks for this mysterious trainee's rank, the answer is an unbelievable one. He is number 25. The commander acknowledges that even branch families can produce strong warriors, but he remains convinced that number 25, while impressive, will ultimately fall short of expectations. Still, he concedes that if the chief instructor is vouching for him, there must be a valid reason. The advisor then reveals the full name of this mysterious variable, number 25, Leonard Cardenas. Just a few days ago, this unknown trainee began a bloody rampage, surging from a pathetic rank, 381 all the way to 25, by cutting down every opponent in his path. The aide stammers in disbelief, calling it a joke, but the advisor simply tells him to look at the screen right now, because at this very moment, the final duel is underway between this dark horse and the undisputed number 1. On the field, the mysterious number 25 stands ready to face the ultimate test of his power. The arrogant champion smirks, mocking Leonard for daring to face him and asking if he came just to surrender. But with unnerving calm, Leonard simply replies that he's fine with his opponent not holding back. Leonard calmly agrees, stating he had no intention of holding back either. This response instantly ignites a dangerous glint in the champion's eye. Enraged, the number 1 trainee unleashes his immense aura, demanding Leonard draw his weapon to be put in his place. Yet Leonard remains calm, acknowledging that his opponent's power is on an entirely different level. But with a confident smirk, he prepares to see just how wide that gap truly is. He beckons his opponent forward, ready to teach his own lesson and test the limits of his newfound strength. The champion takes the bait, launching himself forward in a blindingly fast charge. He screams that he'll crush both Leonard and his sword together. A furious storm of sword strikes erupts as their blades finally meet in a cataclysmic clash. But to the champion's shock, his overwhelming assault is stopped dead in its tracks. Leonard calmly meets the champion's furious strike, their swords clashing with immense force. As the number 1 trainee pushes with all his might, a horrifying crack begins to spiderweb across his blade. He stares in utter disbelief, unable to comprehend how his sword could possibly be breaking. But Leonard smirks, coolly reminding him that his own sword isn't so fragile it could be broken by a mere apprentice. Enraged by the mockery, the champion unleashes his true aura, screaming for Leonard to stop playing games. A furious barrage of attacks rains down, yet Leonard parries every single blow with impossible calm and precision. Meanwhile, watching from afar, a high-ranking observer notes the curious and unorthodox nature of Leonard's sword style. He's amazed by the sheer efficiency, realizing Leonard is deflecting every strike with the absolute minimum force required. Despite the champion's overwhelming assault, the mysterious trainee hasn't even bothered to launch a proper counterattack. Leonard effortlessly sidesteps another blow, leaving the number 1 trainee to curse him as nothing more than an infuriating pest. The number 1 trainee roars in frustration, demanding to know if running away is all he's good at, but Leonard just continues to flip through the air, evading another devastating strike with impossible grace. He lands perfectly without a single scratch, maintaining his infuriatingly calm expression. Planting his foot firmly on the ground, he pivots in an instant. He then bursts away at an incredible speed, leaving the champion completely bewildered. Pushed beyond his breaking point, the golden trainee erupts in a massive explosion of raw power. He unleashes a final, desperate slash meant to annihilate everything in its path. After the dust settles, Leonard finally stops, standing completely unscathed with his back turned. He glances over his shoulder with a chilling smirk, casually admitting his opponent's power is quite something. The mockery sends the champion into a final rage, screaming that Leonard has a big mouth for someone who only dodges. Leonard's eyes flare with power as he finally demands a real fight. Done with the games. In response, the golden trainee charges forward, closing the distance in an instant. But Leonard calmly assesses him, seeing that for all his immense power, he still lacks something critical. He effortlessly sidesteps the champion's desperate lunge with almost insulting ease. What the champion lacks is the brutal intuition forged only on the true brink of death. Leonard coldly declares that this is the limit of the so-called genius, leaving the number 1 utterly stunned. Before the champion can even process this, Leonard leaps over him and delivers a crushing blow to his back. The onlooking trainees can't believe their eyes, questioning how number 25 is completely dominating the undisputed number 1. To the champion, it's like he's fighting a completely different person, as Leonard lands another brutal strike. The mysterious trainee then bursts away again, his movements impossibly fast and fluid. The number 1 trainee roars in frustration, completely losing sight of his impossibly fast opponent. But suddenly, Leonard appears directly behind him, his sword raised to deliver the final, inescapable blow. The champion's mind shatters in disbelief, unable to process how a complete nobody could so thoroughly dominate him. With cold finality, Leonard declares the undisputed genius's defeat. A devastating strike sends the golden-haired trainee flying, ending the entire selection match in an instant. His eyes go white with shock as blood erupts from the impact, marking a humiliating end to his reign. Standing over his fallen foe, Leonard reflects that this level of power would have been impossible for his old self. But everything has changed, now that all of his memories have finally returned. These are the memories of his past life as Ren, the man once hailed as the world's greatest sword emperor. Ren was a legendary being who reached a realm where he could split the heavens and crush mountains, a title earned through sheer, overwhelming strength. But even as the sword emperor, Ren was unsatisfied, so he finally challenged the heavenly demon, the being hailed as the strongest of the era. Their cataclysmic battle lasted for days, a clash of gods so intense it permanently transformed the landscape itself. And when the dust settled, the result of this legendary duel was finally decided. Under a blood-red moon, amidst a shattered wasteland, the Sword Emperor stood as the sole, undisputed victor. The defeated heavenly demon couldn't comprehend it, questioning why their swordsmanship, which should have been perfect, had so utterly failed. In despair, they wondered how it was possible that their blade could not even graze the man who stood before them. And with a condescending smirk, the Sword Emperor gave a single, soul-crushing answer: basics. He explained that his foe never truly understood the sword, and that their immaturity in the fundamentals was their greatest weakness. This seemingly small flaw became a fatal error in the end, sealing their doom. But the heavenly demon could only scoff at the cheap insult, humiliated to be told he was lacking in the very basics of combat. The heavenly demon dismisses his enemy's words as meaningless, yet calls his struggle admirable for a mere stray dog, vowing to show respect to the one departing this world as a final honor for his defeated rival. And under the crimson moon, he bids farewell to the man once known as the Sword Emperor. The Emperor's very existence begins to crumble as his body disintegrates into nothingness. As he collapses onto the shattered earth, he can't believe his reign is ending so easily. With his last breath, he desperately wishes for just one more chance to start over, questioning if his sword could ever have truly reached his foe. The legend of Sword Emperor Ren ends in absolute defeat, but at that very moment, something shifted. In a place no one could have imagined, a new legend was about to begin as unknown voices panicked over someone's shallow breathing. Suddenly, a young trainee, rank 381, jolts awake with a gasp, his eyes burning with a crimson light that shouldn't belong to him. Utterly disoriented in an unfamiliar body, he can only question what in the world just happened. Leonard jolts awake, still haunted by the dream of his own death, only to be met by a mocking voice. The other trainees are shocked he's still alive, thinking their little session had finished him for good. But, as they look at the boy from rank 381, they sense something is fundamentally different. Enraged at being startled, the lead bully lunges in to finish the job, screaming that Leonard is a dead man. In that split second, a flash of crimson in Leonard's eyes reveals the soul of a warrior has awakened. His body moves with inhuman speed, intercepting the blow with an effortless grace that shouldn't be possible. The bully and his cronies freeze in utter disbelief, their minds unable to process how the weakest trainee just stopped a direct hit. Even Leonard is stunned, realizing his body moved on its own with the instincts of a seasoned master. The attacker, rank 130, trembles with humiliation and rage as he's held powerless by his victim. Convinced it was just a lucky break, he draws his sword, ready to end this farce once and for all. The enraged bully swings his sword down, screaming that his opponent shouldn't get carried away. But with impossible grace, Leonard sidesteps the attack that should have killed him. His opponent freezes in sheer disbelief, his mind reeling from the fact that he somehow missed. Even Leonard is shocked, realizing his body is moving entirely on its own with the instincts of a master. He immediately counters with a flawless sword form he's never practiced before. The blow connects with brutal efficiency, shattering the bully's defense in an instant. As his foe collapses to the ground, Leonard understands that some otherworldly force is guiding his body. The bully's friends, trainees 257 and 329, can only stare in horror, realizing it wasn't just luck. The boy who was a nobody just moments ago now radiates an aura of absolute power. They tremble in fear, unable to comprehend how he's suddenly become a completely different person. The rank 25 trainee tries to rally his terrified friends, shouting for them not to freak out. He and another crony charge forward together, screaming that they'll crush Leonard once and for all. But as they close in, Leonard's eyes glow with an ancient power as he calmly realizes the truth of his existence. With his memories fully returned, he takes a stance that radiates absolute authority, declaring that he remembers everything. His body moves with impossible speed, effortlessly batting aside the attackers, as if they were children. He follows up with a single, devastating strike from a forgotten era that shatters their formation instantly. And just like that, the fight is over, leaving Leonard standing victorious over his unconscious foes. He now understands that the strange dreams that have plagued him were never just dreams. They were visions of a legendary man with white hair, fighting a desperate battle under a blood-red sky. The fragmented memories that once tormented his training have finally pieced together, revealing the soul of the Sword Emperor within him. The memories of a man from another world are vividly returning, leading to only one impossible conclusion. He finally accepts the truth that he is the reincarnation of Ren, the legendary Sword Emperor. The sheer reality of reincarnation existing is almost too much for him to comprehend. He wonders if a desperate wish at the moment of his past death brought him here, the sudden influx of memories causing him immense pain. But a harsh reality sets in as this new body is pathetically weak, his arm aching from just a simple swing. The voice of his past self echoes in his mind, chiding him for his reckless and inefficient training. But with new resolve burning in his eyes, he realizes that from now on, everything changes. Armed with the memories and techniques of a grandmaster, he vows to become overwhelmingly strong. He sets a new goal to achieve what even the great Sword Emperor Ren could not. His ultimate ambition is now clear, to use everything he has to surpass even the legend of his past life. At the Cardenas training grounds, news spreads that 3 trainees are injured. And while the elite trainees dismiss them as useless for the upcoming field training, they are unconcerned. Their leader believes their strength will barely be impacted, seeing the loss as trivial. But as he turns, a chilling detail about the incident begins to surface. The one who defeated all 3 was a single person, the bottom-ranked, number 381, and the entire fight was over almost instantly. A trainee calmly asks for the exact numbers of the defeated students, and the answer is shocking. Numbers 329, 257, and even 133. Disbelief ripples through the group, as they can't fathom how a nobody single-handedly crushed such high-ranked opponents. A grim realization dawns upon the faction's leader. If a monster with that kind of hidden power joins their rivals, the entire balance of power is at risk. Suddenly, this unknown variable has become the single greatest threat to all their carefully laid plans. The faction's leader scoffs at the report, his aura flaring as he refuses to be shaken by a single weakling. But another high-ranking member, number 5, takes the threat seriously, ordering his men to bring number 381 to him immediately. The leader smirks with a calculating glint in his eye, deciding he'll judge this mysterious upstart's true worth for himself. Meanwhile, Leonard is lost in a vivid memory of his past life, standing over a defeated rival and offering one final lesson before death. As the Sword Emperor, he explains that his opponent's ultimate downfall was building his internal energy foundation far too late in life. The vanquished foe, the legendary heavenly demon, can only glare in defeat, realizing a different outcome was once possible. Back in the present, Leonard understands this was his own fatal flaw as well, having begun his training long past the ideal age. But now, in this new young body, he has a second chance to forge a perfect foundation from the very beginning. He focuses his will, vowing to first create a physique that can withstand the impossible levels of mana he once wielded. A massive magic circle erupts around him as the former Sword Emperor begins the ritual to forge an unrivaled body. The ritual is a success, and Leonard feels the surge of refined power coursing through his veins. He reflects on how even as the world's greatest, he was crippled by a lack of internal energy at this age. But now he wonders what mysteries the potent Cardenas bloodline holds for his second chance at perfection. Sometime later, in the bustling trainee dining hall, Leonard quietly grabs a meal. He takes a bite of the simple food, only to be surprised that it actually suits his palate. Realizing a balanced diet is crucial for his growth, he begins to eat with a newfound purpose. Suddenly, a large, high-ranking trainee appears behind him, calling him out as number 381. The powerful trainee mentions hearing about yesterday's fight, questioning if Leonard is more hot-headed than he seems. He also points out Leonard's sudden change in appetite, noting his devouring a meal he'd normally barely touch. Leonard recognizes him as number 8, but the trainee corrects him, revealing he is now number 7, a direct consequence of the power vacuum Leonard created. The new number 7 boasts about his recent victory, explaining the system of stealing ranks through duels. But Leonard is utterly unimpressed, cutting straight through the noise to ask what he really wants. The trainee smirks, believing he's about to reveal a critical secret to the oblivious low-ranker. He warns that the training grounds have become a war zone as the top rankers aggressively expand their influence. Slamming his hand down, he tries to convey the sheer desperation of their situation. He then reveals his trump card, acknowledging Leonard's golden hair and eyes as proof of his direct Cardenas lineage. He recalls the terrified whispers spreading through the ranks about this very revelation. Yet Leonard's cold dismissal leaves him completely stunned, questioning if the boy has gone mad or become a different person overnight. Sheer frustration builds as he grits his teeth, unable to comprehend Leonard's total lack of fear. He desperately explains they must unite to survive, only for Leonard to coldly ask what role he expects him to play. Number 7 reveals the terrifying truth that over half the trainees have already bent the knee to the top factions. He desperately pitches an alliance, explaining that he, number 3, and number 9 are joining forces and need Leonard's power to survive. But Leonard's response is a cold, decisive refusal to join any group. He casually thanks him for the information and simply walks away, leaving the high ranker completely stunned. Number 7 is left utterly baffled, wondering if this impossibly confident boy is even the same person he once knew. As dusk falls, Leonard walks alone through the now hostile academy grounds, his solitary path now chosen. Suddenly, he stops, calmly addressing the figures who have appeared to block his way. A condescending voice confirms their business, mockingly asking the former number 381 if he enjoyed his meal. The challengers are revealed to be none other than the undisputed number 1 and his enforcers, ready for a direct confrontation. With a furious shout, his subordinate delivers the chilling summons, making it clear this isn't a request, but an order from the top. The high ranker offers a veiled threat, revealing number 1 already knows everything about his rejection of number 7. Leonard internally scoffs at their sophisticated but childish power games before turning to face them directly. With absolute disdain, he rejects the summons outright and tells the stunned enforcers to get lost. Enraged by the disrespect from a low ranker, the subordinate explodes with fury and lunges forward to attack. But Leonard remains perfectly still, a calm eye in a storm of incoming wooden swords. In a single, impossible stride, he closes the distance instantly, his speed leaving his opponent completely stunned. A dangerous red aura begins to crackle around his hand as he prepares to counter the attack barehanded. The resulting clash is catastrophic, a blinding explosion of power that no trainee should be able to produce. His opponent is sent flying, his wooden sword shattered to pieces against Leonard's simple block. Before he can even process this impossible sight, Leonard follows up with a single, bone-crushing strike. Leonard casually flicks the rank tag of his fallen opponent, number 157, whose skill was shockingly high for his position. His challengers are left utterly defeated, proving there's a terrifying secret to the Cardenas bloodline. But another trainee, number 98, refuses to back down, screaming that he is stronger and demanding a fight. With a cold look, Leonard accepts the challenge and vanishes in a burst of impossible speed. The resulting impact is so immense it shakes the very walls of the training grounds, ending the fight instantly. Far above, the defeated trainee's rank tag flies through the air as a mysterious observer realizes Leonard was merely toying with him. This masked figure is completely stunned, wondering if Leonard has been hiding his true strength this entire time. His mind races, confirming the boy isn't a spy, just as Leonard's gaze suddenly snaps directly towards him. The observer freezes in shock, realizing Leonard somehow sensed his gaze from an impossible distance. Known as the Owl, he resigns himself to a massive upset, hoping this time it won't be so predictable. Leonard recalls being told great things were expected of him when he was just a low-rank nobody. Now standing over a field of defeated foes, he has claimed the title of number 98. News of his rampage spreads like wildfire as trainees rush towards the training grounds to see the monster for themselves. It's revealed that the top-ranked trainee, number 1, has ordered his capture, sending his underlings into a panicked frenzy. This power play even reaches the ears of the second strongest trainee. Ho questions why number 1 is targeting this newcomer. She is revealed to be number 2, Cardenas, confirming for herself that the rumors of an amazing kid were true. Arriving at the scene, she finds number 1's elite underlings already defeated and scattered across the ground. But just as she takes in the carnage, another body is sent flying past her head. She can only watch as Leonard effortlessly crushes another attacker, who begs him to just join their squad. With a cold glare, Leonard makes his position clear, openly questioning if number 1 is just an idiot with good skills. Leonard's overwhelming power shatters his opponent's weapon in a completely one-sided fight, and without a moment's hesitation, he rips the rank badge straight from the fallen trainee's chest. He coldly informs the defeated man that his rank now belongs to him, leaving no room for argument. But just as the dust settles, a new challenger calmly walks onto the battlefield. It's the number 2 trainee, Cardenas, who congratulates him on his promotion before asking if he knows who she is. Her piercing golden eyes seem to see right through him, as she reveals that she can perceive his true nature. Veritas' unique vision allows her to witness the strange constitution and the unbelievable flow of ki swirling within Leonard's body. This, combined with the number 25 badge now clutched in his hand, confirms her suspicions about his hidden power. Leonard recognizes her rare ability as a form of clairvoyance, noting that she has already mastered the legendary state of mind's eye. He understands this power is a terrifying weapon capable of seeing an enemy's inner self, a trait truly befitting the second strongest trainee. Verita questions his refusal to team up, doubting he can survive the next exercise alone. But suddenly, a new challenger steps in, coldly telling her to back off. This is the infamous number 1, Cardenas, who menacingly scolds her for leaking their group's secrets. In a brutal display of power, he sends one of his own men flying with a single, contemptuous strike. He declares that he had to come personally, since his useless subordinates couldn't even handle a simple chore. Leonard calmly observes the scene, acknowledging that the infamous number 1 truly possesses an overwhelming charisma. After wondering what kind of man held the top spot, Leonard steps forward to finally meet him face to face. The two powerhouses finally stand before each other, and Leonard calmly greets the top-ranked trainee. Without hesitation, Leonard issues a direct challenge to fight, immediately enraging the prideful number 1. But the tense standoff is suddenly shattered by the uproarious laughter of Verita, who finds the whole situation absolutely hilarious. Verita finds the situation hilarious, remarking that Leonard is the first person to ever speak to number 1 with such an attitude. Just moments ago, this entire confrontation was set in motion after Leonard decisively crushed number 5's faction, forcing Every's hand before the upcoming exercise. During that beatdown, he had left the defeated number 25 with a chilling promise, his eyes blazing with a terrifying power. Leonard calmly confirmed his intentions, ready to assess the true strength of the top rankers. He alone seemed to know the true purpose of the event, a secret test where direct descendants must build and lead their own factions. With the critical joint exercise happening tomorrow, the entire power structure of the trainees is about to be shattered. Meanwhile, on the day of the event, a senior instructor arrives, asking if all the trainees have gathered for the assessment. His aide quickly confirms that everyone has assembled in the designated area, but the aide nervously adds that a very peculiar and powerful trainee appeared while they were forming the squads. The man, senior instructor Bruno, leans in with deadly seriousness, demanding a full report on this unexpected variable. The aide reveals to a shocked senior instructor that the mysterious trainee is participating in the exercise completely alone, confirming he was told the mission is a survival test in the deadly Great Cardenas Forest, where trainees must be self-sufficient, and the top 4 have already formed massive factions to dominate the event. The largest, Squad A, is led by the overwhelming number 1, while the second largest, Squad B, is commanded by the cunning number 2. Squad C is a gathering of trainees who aren't direct descendants, led by the formidable number 3, while Squad D is a tactical unit controlled by the strategy-focused number 4. Even the outcasts have banded together into Squad E, a desperate group of leftovers with a low-ranking leader. But then the aide finally reveals the true anomaly. The newly ranked number 25, Reincarnates, who has been designated as Squad F, a one-man army set to challenge entire legions by himself. Meanwhile, deep in the wilderness, Leonard calmly surveys the vast battlefield, his eyes burning with the cold confidence of an emperor ready for war. As Leonard heads into the vast wilderness, the senior instructor approaches, questioning his laughably small amount of luggage. The instructor is genuinely concerned about his survival, but Leonard calmly states that self-sufficiency is the entire point of the exercise. Deep down, however, he knows this isn't a test of survival but a brutal battle for badges. Suddenly, another trainee rushes forward, interrupting the instructor to warn Leonard about the dangers of entering the forest alone. This ambitious upstart is revealed to be number 4, Dylan Cardenas, who extends a seemingly generous offer to join his squad. But Leonard, completely unimpressed by the power play, coldly tells him to get lost and mind his own business. Number 4 Cephas, realizing his plan to use Leonard as disposable bait for monsters has been utterly exposed. He desperately tries to reason with him, pointing out that even the strongest squad has over 100 members. Leonard's gaze turns to ice as he flatly refuses to join their little picnic in the woods, finally seeing the same unbreakable arrogance that infuriated number 1. Dylan warns him that he will live to regret this decision. Seeing that talk has failed, number 4 decides to persuade Leonard with overwhelming force. He lunges forward with a vicious strike, sarcastically asking him to join the squad one last time. But Leonard dodges the attack with impossible ease, leaving the ranker completely dumbfounded. Number 4 can only stare in disbelief at his opponent's strange and unfamiliar footwork. In the next instant, Leonard counters with a single, devastating blow that sends him flying. Yet Leonard calmly notes the attack lacked any true bloodlust, a chilling level of control for someone his age. The once confident strategist is left utterly defeated on the ground in a completely one-sided fight. Leonard simply clenches his fist, the power difference between them now painfully obvious to everyone. Watching from the side, the senior instructor praises his movement but dismisses the promotion, allowing him to leave first. Leonard simply agrees, his face betraying that this entire challenge was nothing more than a trivial distraction. He senses the overwhelming power of the senior instructor, a man whose presence he couldn't even detect. He realizes this training ground is filled with warriors so fierce that even his past self, the Sword Emperor, would have struggled. In this place, overflowing with the legendary Cardenas bloodline, youth and talent are on a completely different level. But with a sudden stop, he puts those thoughts aside. For now, he must focus on the exercise and secure an advantageous position before anyone else. Meanwhile, back at the command post, the instructors begin receiving their first field reports. An aide reveals that a major clash has already occurred, far earlier than anyone expected. Number 1 Squad, ignoring the hunt for a base, launched a full-scale ambush on Squad C, resulting in a brutal, one-sided defeat. The entire team was annihilated as they tried to flee the overwhelming assault. All of them were wiped out, except for number 3, who barely managed to escape with her life. Senior instructor Bruno remarks that while number 1's surprise attack was sharp, it seemed to rely purely on overwhelming numbers. However, he senses a far deeper, more calculated strategy behind the seemingly simple decision. It was a ruthless move that defied all convention, sacrificing a base of operations to launch a lightning-fast assault that wiped an entire squad off the map. With that situation assessed, Bruno turns his attention to the other major powers on the field, demanding a report on Squads B and D. He's informed that the remaining high rankers, fearing for their lives, have forged a grand alliance to take down their common enemy. The instructors are genuinely impressed, acknowledging that this year's trainees are reacting with a speed that puts all previous classes to shame. Bruno then turns to another instructor, asking for her report on the final remaining squads. She nervously explains that her squads have made little progress since choosing their leaders. But when the report turns to the mysterious number 25, she is at a complete loss for words, holding up his file as if it describes an anomaly. Her confusion becomes clear as the scene shifts to her in the field, staring in absolute shock at that very same trainee standing all alone in the wilderness. The instructor is in absolute shock. He just called her name despite her stealth being top tier even among her peers. But Leonard simply turns back, calmly stating he has a question for his hidden observer. His unnerving gaze confirms it. That kid was completely aware of her from the very beginning. Forced out of hiding, she drops to the ground and demands to know what number 25 could possibly want from her. He points towards a dark cave, calmly stating he'd like to use it as his shelter, but it seems to have a master. Suddenly, a monstrous blue direwolf emerges from the darkness, a beast he correctly assumes belongs to the Cardenas family. The instructor confirms it's a trained monster but scoffs internally, knowing a solo trainee has zero chance of victory. Still, she decides to see if he's just bluffing, ready to step in if things go south. She gives him permission if he can manage to defeat the beast. He can take its den and whatever is inside. With a confident smirk, she watches as the massive wolf roars and lunges forward to rip the lone boy apart. Leonard calmly readies his blade, telling the beast its moves are pretty good for a pet, and that he'll go easy on it. But as the wolf lunges with a powerful blue aura, he effortlessly deflects its charge, while asking it to leave his new shelter. The massive beast lets out a pathetic yelp, completely shocked by the boy's impossible strength. It sent skidding helplessly across the ground, utterly dominated in the first exchange. Enraged by the humiliation, the direwolf bares its fangs with a furious snarl, finally recognizing him as a real threat. Suddenly, it erupts in a storm of raw power, its entire body crackling with a terrifying blue aura. Leonard remains unfazed, merely noting the creature's overwhelming bloodlust as it loses its mind. He tightens his grip on his sword, realizing that holding back now would only cause trouble for the instructor watching him. Leaping into the air with blinding speed, he warns the beast that his next attack might sting a bit. In a flash, he brings his sword down in a devastating arc, turning this fight into a completely one-sided execution. With impossible agility, Leonard twists past the beast's snapping jaws, refusing to be devoured so easily, and then counters with a devastating thrust, ramming his sword straight down the monster's throat. The watching instructor is left speechless, realizing he overpowered it in an instant without any help at all. With one foot, he pins the legendary monster to the ground, its strength completely meaningless before him. Having claimed victory, he approaches the now vacant den, a new base of operations secured, but instead of finishing it off, he tames the terrifying beast with simple commands, turning a monster into a pet. The once fearsome direwolf now happily performs tricks, completely submitting to its new master. He calmly turns to the stunned instructor and asks if he can bring his new companion along for the rest of the exercise. She trembles, imagining the chaos a boy with such decisive skill could cause with a direwolf at his command. Recognizing his undeniable ability, she has no choice but to agree, allowing it with certain conditions. The instructor reluctantly accepts Leonard's terms, while he calmly states this was his intention from the very beginning. As he turns to leave, a powerful energy swirls around him, signaling he's more than ready for what's to come. He smirks with cold confidence, knowing the beast-taming technique he just mastered will be an invaluable asset. With the exercise now truly underway, Leonard commands his new direwolf companion to begin the hunt. The lone warrior and his beast reach a fork in the road and decide to split up to cover more ground. With a final command, he unleashes the direwolf, which shoots off into the forest like a phantom of pure power. Meanwhile, in another part of the woods, a defeated trainee collapses, calling his unseen attacker a monster. The victor is revealed to be the undisputed number 1, William Cardenas, who scoffs at the fallen as trash unworthy of his family's blood. He casually shoves another badge into his already overflowing pockets, a testament to his brutal hunt. With a chilling glare, he warns the survivor that he was lucky this time, as their next encounter will be his last. A defeated trainee grits his teeth, cursing his own weakness after a brutal defeat. His mind flashes back to the one-sided slaughter, where his entire squad was utterly crushed by a single, untouchable opponent. The squad's reluctant leader realizes they never stood a chance, and are now nothing more than easy prey for the monsters in this forest. A cold sweat drips down his face as the sheer hopelessness of their situation finally sinks in. His broken team looks to him for answers, but he can only admit that their luck has run out, and another attack means certain death. Desperately, he tries to rally his comrades, suggesting they pull themselves together and look for food. But his words are met with faces of pure, unadulterated terror, leaving him completely bewildered. Because looming behind him is a new kind of predator, a monstrous bear ready to devour them all alive. His sword drops from his hand as he collapses in utter despair, accepting his fate. Just as the beast attacks, a crimson-eyed warrior slams down from above, intercepting the fatal blow with an impossible display of power. The ferocious beast roars, its crimson eyes burning with pure murderous intent. But its attack is stopped cold, and the terrified squad leader looks up in disbelief at their unexpected savior. With a single, overwhelming blow, the monster lies defeated, a lone figure standing atop its massive corpse. It's none other than Leonard Cardenas, trainee number 25, a rank far too low for this impossible display of power. Instead of gratitude, however, the squad leader calls him a cold-blooded monster, convinced he's just another predator. He believes Leonard is only there for their rations and badges, completely forgetting they were seconds from being devoured. Leonard ignores the accusations and calmly approaches the battered squad to ask if they are all right. The squad leader is left completely stunned by this simple act of concern. Leonard repeats the question, his intentions still a complete mystery to the survivors. Hearing they're safe, he simply turns to leave, leaving them to wonder why the strongest trainee they've ever seen just saved them for nothing. Leonard calmly states he only helped because they looked to be in serious danger. He then clarifies his true goal is training, not winning, and that he has no interest in their badges. Turning his back, he coldly adds that if he actually wanted to win, he'd pick more worthy opponents. The squad leader finally understands, realizing this overwhelming power is how Leonard climbed the ranks so impossibly fast. Humbled, he bows his head in gratitude, admitting that they owe him one for saving their lives. He then adds that thanks to Leonard's intervention, their squad avoided complete elimination. This unexpected gratitude seems to catch Leonard off guard as he looks away, flustered. But just as the tension finally breaks, a menacing sound from the dark forest puts everyone on high alert. From the shadows, a pair of terrifying, glowing blue eyes lock onto the group. A monstrous direwolf emerges from the trees, its sheer size sending the already battered trainees screaming in absolute terror. While the other trainees panic at the sight of the direwolf, Leonard utters a single, unbelievable command to the beast, sit. To everyone's shock, the monster actually obeys, dropping the unconscious trainee it was carrying in its jaws. Leonard calmly turns to the stunned squad leader, who can't comprehend the level of power he's witnessing. They quickly identify the victim as the elite number 3, one of the strongest trainees in the entire exercise. Now utterly defeated, the squad leader's mind races, realizing that if a prodigy like number 3 could fall, his only path to survival is to secure a high-ranking badge. But as he glances from the terrifying wolf to the boy commanding it, he understands that Leonard himself is the far greater monster. Leonard coolly analyzes number 3's wounds, deducing that only an apex predator or the absolute top rankers could have inflicted this much damage. He then confronts the desperate squad leader, calling out his pathetic desire to simply avoid elimination. But instead of punishing him, Leonard makes a deal, offering the massive bear carcass as a food supply to ensure their survival, leaving them with the provisions. He gives one last piece of advice to the bewildered squad: don't let numbers dictate everything. As Leonard departs with his monstrous wolf, the trainee he just saved begins to question if the ruthless killer might actually be a good person. But Leonard can already feel a strange misunderstanding brewing around him. Meanwhile, the elite number 3 trainee, left for dead, suddenly snaps her eyes open. She finds herself alone in the dead of night, completely disoriented and unaware of where she is. To her shock, she realizes her severe wounds have been expertly bandaged by an unknown savior. Just then, a voice calls out to her, and her instincts scream as she whirls around. Her own number 3 badge, the proof of her defeat, is tossed through the air right at her. Believing it's an enemy, she attacks with a vicious kick only to be stopped cold by Leonard's casual block. He calmly tells her to stop wasting energy, but she furiously demands her badge back, misinterpreting his help for mockery. Leonard simply stares back, his eyes beginning to glow with power, completely baffled by her unprovoked aggression. The number 3 trainee finally realizes her badge was returned, not stolen. She watches in stunned silence as the mysterious boy who saved her turns his back. Gathering her pride, she states she won't hand over her badge, only for Leonard to casually reply that he never intended to take it. Instead, he offers her freshly cooked meat, a gesture of kindness that leaves her utterly speechless. She hesitantly accepts his help as he coldly explains he couldn't just let a starving kid die. While she eats, Leonard presses for information, asking what exactly happened to her and the rest of Group C. He questions if a monster was to blame, but her chilling one-word denial shatters that theory. Her face twists with rage and trauma as she begins to explain the truth behind the ambush. A brutal flashback reveals it wasn't a beast, but the ruthless trainees of Group A who orchestrated a complete massacre. As she calls herself a pathetic leader, Leonard bluntly analyzes her defeat, stating she never stood a chance against their overwhelming numbers. Leonard calmly analyzes their defeat, noting that in a large-scale battle, inexperience is a fatal flaw. As he recalls the only way to win was through ruthless ambushes, a strategy perfectly executed by the formidable Number 1. He then asks if her injury was caused by Number 1, and she confirms the terrifying power gap, admitting he's on a completely different level. She clenches her fist in frustration, acknowledging that her squad simply lacked the strength to compete. But what truly infuriates her is the humiliation of being wiped out, without even being able to fight back. Leonard observes her unbroken fighting spirit, impressed by her resilience despite the overwhelming defeat. He silently acknowledges her potential, realizing she is destined to become a fine warrior. Despite this, the reality of the situation is grim, as he knows it's only a matter of time before the other allied groups collapse as well. Even with an alliance, they'd still be outnumbered, facing an enemy whose morale is soaring after a decisive victory. And the most dangerous part is that their opponent is a master of strategy who is undoubtedly prepared for any counterattack. Number 3 realizes their opponent's strategy is ruthless, but Leonard has already identified Group as one critical weakness. His plan is simple and brutal: focus every single attack on their untouchable leader, Number 1. He knows that Number 1's entire faction is built around him like a king on a chessboard, a single pillar holding everything up. The moment that pillar is shattered, their entire coordinated army will collapse into a panicked, disorganized mob. Back in the present, Leonard looks at the defeated trainee and sees the burning desire for revenge against the one who crushed her. With unshakable confidence, he simply tells her to put her trust in him. She's left completely speechless by his overwhelming presence and conviction. But with her fighting spirit rekindled, she agrees to the alliance, asking if she should now call him leader. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, the very target of their plan, William Cardenas, calmly greets the last of his arriving forces. He tells his men there's no need to rush, completely unaware that a plan is in motion to turn his greatest strength into his ultimate downfall. Number 5 remarks that the final battle will begin soon. But the Number 1 trainee, William, suddenly senses something is completely wrong. He immediately raises his hand, halting his entire faction and ordering them to prepare for battle. His troops skid to a halt as the air crackles with unspoken tension. With absolute confidence, William taunts his hidden foe, suggesting it would be wiser to surrender now. He then bellows into the silent forest, demanding they stop hiding and show themselves. And from the brush, Leonard's newly formed alliance calmly steps out, revealing their trap. In an instant, William's forces find themselves completely surrounded by a sea of enemies. Yet, instead of panic, a smirk plays on William's lips as he acknowledges the lion's decent senses. Because, as it turns out, the Number 1 wasn't alone, revealing his own shocking trump card, an alliance with the powerful Number 2, Verita Cardenas. Leonard dismisses the Number 1's arrogant speech, stating his shallow wit isn't even worth discussing. He coldly questions how someone of William's pathetic level even dares stand before him. But the Number 2, Verita, sneers back with a chilling smile, calling Leonard a disgrace to the Cardenas family. She continues to mock his arrogant posture, comparing him to a preening peacock. William snaps back at his own ally, calling her a brainless woman and claiming his stance is one of true dignity. Suddenly, their bickering is shattered by an immense slash of power that carves a crater into the earth. In an instant, Leonard clashes with both the Number 1 and Number 2 in a blindingly fast three-way battle. Seeing their leaders engaged, the Number 3 screams for the entire alliance to attack and wipe out Squad A. In response, William's faction desperately prepares to defend, shouting for everyone to hold the line. With a deafening roar, the two massive armies finally collide in a chaotic, all-out war. As the three-way battle rages, Verita is sent flying, secretly questioning the true nature of Leonard's mysterious trait. Even with her special mind's eye, his speed and power are so overwhelming that every block sends tremors through her body. Nearby, the Number 1 trainee William watches in disbelief, completely unable to comprehend the power he's witnessing. Finally deciding to act, he charges forward, screaming that they must figure out the trait of this monster. But his attack is stopped dead as Leonard effortlessly catches the blade with his bare hand, radiating a menacing red aura. With both of their swords now caught, Leonard scoffs at their combined assault, calling their techniques nothing but petty tricks. William is thrown completely off balance, his mind unable to process how he was just disarmed so easily. Before he can recover, Leonard slams into him with a brutal shoulder check, sending the number 1 reeling. Seeing this, Verita believes she's found the perfect opening to strike from behind. With her mind's eye locking onto his muscle movements, she prepares a decisive blow, certain he can't possibly defend his rear. Her eyes widen in horror as she realizes the perfect opening isn't a weakness, but an obvious trap. She hesitates for a split second, questioning if this monster planned this exact moment from the start. But it's far too late as Leonard explodes into motion with blinding speed. He spins and effortlessly parries her attack, revealing a terrifying gap in their power. Leonard mockingly admits she's better than number 4, but condescendingly calls her too slow to realize the truth. Catching her blade bare-handed, he declares that her trump card, the all-seeing mind's eye, is completely imperfect. His own eyes flare with an ancient killing intent, stating that to him, her movements are laughably slow. Then, with a single, brutal palm strike, he blasts her backwards as she screams in pain. As the number 2 trainee collapses onto the forest floor, he coldly dismisses her as no challenge at all. Now standing over both of the Academy's top prodigies, he orders her to admit defeat, his dominance absolute. William, the Academy's undisputed number 1, declares his victory, but a voice from the shadows calls his judgment premature. Suddenly, a lone figure emerges from the trees, and the top-ranked faction can only stare in disbelief at his arrival. It's the nobody, number 25, who casually drags one of their defeated comrades forward like a sack of trash. William furiously demands to know what he's doing there, but Leonard simply states his purpose is nothing major. He then reveals the battered body of number 5, another of William's top lieutenants, declaring he's here to return the favor for what they did to his squad. William scoffs at the very idea, screaming that a lone wolf reject like him couldn't possibly have a squad. With a chillingly calm expression, Leonard admits that he didn't have one at first. A sudden noise from the surrounding forest makes William's blood run cold as a terrible realization dawns on him. From all sides, an army of trainees emerges from the trees, a massive alliance of the very people William and his faction had crushed. This is the rebellion of the weak, a unified force of the worthless rising up to topple the tyrant. A trainee Leonard once saved triumphantly holds up a reward, celebrating his squad's newfound hope for survival. He rallies his comrades, declaring that with the provisions gained from the monstrous bear's defeat, they can finally make it through the test. The entire group erupts in cheers for their savior, number 25, but their celebration is suddenly cut short. Back in the present, the trainee's jaw drops as he sees number 25 approaching him, now flanked by the powerful number 3. Thinking they've come to reclaim the supplies, he flinches away, only for Leonard to make a completely unexpected offer, an alliance. The trainee refuses, convinced his weak squad would only be a burden, but Leonard already has a counter-argument prepared. He reminds the boy of a lesson he taught him long ago, that they are all warriors of Cardenas and shouldn't be bound by meaningless numbers. With cold logic, he explains that since their training is identical, their ranks are nothing more than simple name tags. Leonard's gaze hardens as he insists they all possess the Cardenas bloodline, giving them more than enough talent to fight. He then reveals the core of his philosophy. The gap between them isn't skill, but a tiny minority manifesting special traits, while the rest are ultimately the same. To prove his point, Leonard uses number 3 as an example of someone who climbed the ranks through pure effort, before revealing his own impossible journey from the bottom, turning their obsession with numbers against them. But the trainee shouts back in despair, convinced his low rank is an undeniable mark of weakness. He desperately insists that their problem runs deeper than a simple lack of skill. Leonard calmly explains their true weakness isn't power, but the courage to believe in themselves and challenge their limits. He then asks if they've ever truly resolved to fight, before making a stunning declaration. If they can't believe in themselves, he will believe for them. With absolute conviction, he tells them he knows they can win, officially proposing an alliance between their squads. He extends a hand, offering them a chance at the impossible, to take down the untouchable number 1 together. Inspired by his faith, the once defeated trainees erupt with newfound purpose, charging into battle for the man who believed in them. Suddenly, they are confronted by another squad, who mock number 3 for allying with those they call her inferiors. The injured number 3 smirks, revealing that Leonard effortlessly caught her kick with one hand. She declares his movements are far more refined, and on a completely different level than their opponents. Mocking the enemy leader, she explained she didn't join an inferior, but placed herself under someone far stronger. As proof, she points to the battlefield where her weak squad is already dismantling his forces. But as the battle concludes, a strange laugh echoes through the forest, leaving even Leonard momentarily confused. To everyone's shock, a member of the opposing squad suddenly kneels and asks to surrender and join them. Then another follows suit, creating a domino effect of defections right in front of their stunned leader. Even number 4 himself collapses in defeat, admitting he'd rather lose this way than to his true rival. Suddenly, a furious voice erupts from the trees, questioning how a high ranker like number 4 could possibly surrender. The enraged observer is revealed to be William, the untouchable number 1, who demands to know if they have no pride as members of the Cardenas family. William, seething with rage, furiously tells number 4 to stop being stubborn and admit defeat, instead of dishonoring the Cardenas name. His fury then shifts as he finally spots the true mastermind behind the surrender, the upstart number 25, Leonard Cardenas. With the fate of both their factions on the line, William points his sword forward and challenges him to a duel right there, and then he lunges forward without waiting for an answer, vowing to personally teach the rookie the massive gap in their power. But Leonard remains utterly unfazed, revealing this confrontation was his intention from the very beginning. In fact, with a smirk, he calmly states that William is the one who desperately needs to be taught a lesson. A terrifying golden aura suddenly erupts from Leonard as he taunts the number 1 to bring it on, promising he'll be the one teaching today. From the sidelines, observers realize this isn't just a skirmish, it's the final battle between the undisputed top ranker and the mysterious newcomer. The question hangs in the air: will the champion dominate as expected, or is an unprecedented upset about to unfold? As their blades finally meet in a deafening clash, the onlookers sense they might be witnessing the birth of a new legend. William unleashes a straightforward yet devastatingly powerful strike, a move meant to shatter his opponent in a single blow. He remembers how even the formidable number 2 buckled under this exact attack, confident the sheer force will overwhelm Leonard's arms with fatigue. However, he remains composed, believing this fight is about more than just raw power. From his elite perspective, Leonard is just a trainee, with brute strength whose movements are hopelessly easy to read. But Leonard instantly shatters that assumption, countering with an attack from a completely impossible angle that catches William off guard. The number 1 ranker is stunned, finally realizing this must be the same unpredictable technique that so easily defeated number 2. Watching from the sidelines, even the senior instructor is forced to admit that the move was genuinely surprising. He marvels at how number 25 could see through the top ranker's technique in such a short amount of time. This raises a chilling question. Does this rookie possess an insight that even the prodigious number 2 could never hope to match? As their blades clash again, William makes a terrifying discovery. His opponent isn't fighting with simple physical strength at all. It's not just strength. Number 1 wields an invisible, formless power unique to his rank. This psychokinesis allows him to strike from impossible trajectories where it's difficult to apply force. It's a technique that should catch any skilled trainee off guard, as they'd assume a sword simply can't move that way. By imbuing both his arms and sword with this energy, he can unleash extraordinary destructive power. His ability is truly a force that defies common sense. Yet Leonard meets it head-on without even faltering. William is completely stunned, realizing this low ranker somehow saw through his ultimate power. But as their blades lock in a deafening crash, a more terrifying truth dawns on him. Not only did Leonard see through his ability, he was hiding his own true strength this entire time. William demands to know why he held back, but Leonard's eyes gleam red as he declares his sword will be the only answer. He will respond in a way that truly befits the legendary house of the Sword Duke. William grits his teeth, finally accepting Leonard's challenge to fight for real. Suddenly, a wave of immense pressure slams into Leonard as the number 1 trainee makes his move. William reveals his true power, a psychokinesis-infused sword strike that proves his rank is no mere title. He stands over the massive fissure he created, taunting the low-ranked number 25 with this display of overwhelming force. But Leonard remains completely unfazed, simply demanding that his opponent show him even more of his true power. Enraged by this arrogance, William agrees, his body erupting in a violent blue aura as he prepares his final attack. Meanwhile, Leonard knows he can't use the external force of his past life in this weakened body without drawing unwanted attention. He tightens his grip on his sword, realizing there is only one simple path forward in this duel. With his eyes glowing a menacing red, he resolves to simply cut his opponent down. And in a single moment, Leonard unleashes a cataclysmic slash of his own that completely dwarfs William's power. William unleashes a barrage of invisible psychokinetic blades, impressed by Leonard's speed but confident in his ultimate power. Enraged by his opponent's effortless dodges, he screams and unleashes an even more ferocious volley of attacks. The sheer force of his invisible power completely shatters the massive trees in the training ground. But Leonard just scoffs, flipping through the deadly onslaught without so much as a single scratch. Meanwhile, the spectators are completely baffled, with number 2 realizing that the others can't even perceive the true nature of the attack. It's revealed that William is using a cowardly technique that renders his power invisible, yet it's having no effect whatsoever. In fact, it's becoming clear that number 25 is the one truly holding back, making this a completely one-sided fight. The other trainees can only watch in disbelief as the top-ranked fighter fails to land a single blow on the supposed weakling. Then suddenly, number 4 realizes the horrifying truth. Leonard isn't just dodging, he's slowly and deliberately closing the distance. While some think he's just running around, the smarter observers understand that every single move is intentional, leading William into a deadly trap. The senior instructor realizes Leonard's seemingly random movements are a deliberate act to deceive number 1. Because Leonard isn't just dodging, he's methodically cornering his prey like a predator. But from William's perspective, he's the one gradually closing the distance, completely unaware of the lethal trap. Then suddenly, the game is over as Leonard appears directly behind the shocked number 1 in the blink of an eye. With cold, glowing red eyes, he declares the fight has already been lost. He then unleashes an overwhelming attack that sends William flying, shattering the very ground beneath them. The proud number 1 can only scream in disbelief as blood erupts from his mouth. To him, the idea of losing to a supposed underdog is completely impossible. The sheer force of the final blow creates a massive pillar of energy that tears through the sky. And in that moment of crushing impact, the undisputed champion is forced to accept his complete and utter defeat. For William, this overwhelming power isn't just defeat, it's the absolute certainty of death itself. The smoke clears to reveal the final, humiliating moment with a blade pressed against his throat. Leonard Cardenas stands over him, not with rage, but with an unnerving calm. All the proud number 1 can do is let out a broken, hollow laugh. As his former allies watch in stunned silence, William officially concedes his loss to number 25. The cratered battlefield serves as a testament to the impossible victory everyone just witnessed. Even the senior instructor is left speechless, admitting this outcome was completely unexpected. But instead of despair, William actually thanks his opponent, calling him the new number 1 and saying the loss was refreshing. Leonard is completely baffled by this bizarre reaction, questioning the true meaning behind the former champion's words. William reflects on a lifetime of brutal training and the conviction that he must be the strongest. But in the face of Leonard's impossible power, his entire life's philosophy was completely shattered in an instant. When asked for his thoughts, the defeated champion simply says it's nothing, his hand reaching out. He then formally concedes, admitting it was a good match and acknowledging the new number 1. Leonard can only sigh, still utterly baffled by the former king's strangely calm demeanor. Nevertheless, he accepts the handshake, cementing his victory with a surprising show of mutual respect. Meanwhile, the instructors watching from afar are left in absolute disbelief, unable to process that the unbeatable prodigy has actually lost. Other trainees who bet everything on William's victory are now completely broke, cursing their misplaced faith. But the senior instructor sees this unexpected result as a great harvest, a sign of true potential finally emerging. As the outdoor training is declared over, Leonard is hoisted into the air by his cheering allies, the undisputed new ruler of the trainees. Even the former top ranks, William and Verita, are forced to acknowledge the shocking power that Leonard's makeshift squad brought to the battlefield. They can only watch as the trainees celebrate their new leader, an extraordinary person who united the weak to overthrow the strong. Meanwhile, the senior instructor smirks, declaring the result more satisfying than he could have ever imagined. He calmly tells his subordinate to prepare for their return now that the exercise is over. But then he issues a chilling new order: contact the main house and inform them that the time for the coming-of-age ceremony has finally arrived. Later that night, Leonard shares a quiet moment with his loyal direwolf, explaining that he must leave this place tomorrow. The massive beast can only let out a sad whimper, confused by this sudden farewell. Looking into its eyes, Leonard asks if it's sad to say goodbye. Beneath the full moon, he admits that he feels the same way, their powerful bond now facing an unavoidable separation. He apologizes for being unable to take his companion along, but makes a solemn promise for their future. Leonard makes a solemn vow to his loyal companion, promising he will grow stronger and come back for him. The massive direwolf can only respond with pure joy, understanding they'll one day play together again. With a final, determined look, Leonard warns his friend to keep up, hinting at the treacherous journey that awaits them both. As he departs, the lone wolf howls at the moon, a silent promise to wait for their reunion. Suddenly, The scene shifts to a carriage where Leonard is now surrounded by the very top rankers he so utterly defeated. Confused, the former rank 4 questions their presence, stating there were no orders to board by number. The others simply admit their reasons. One follows the squad leader, another the main star, and the last surrendered to his power. But the strategic rank 4 reveals his true motive, wanting to understand the monster, who went from rank 381 to number 1 in just a month. He then approaches Leonard with a serious warning, saying there's something he needs to tell him before he can finish. The former rank 3 shouts that he's changed completely, forcing the flustered trainee to yell at her to shut up. The former number 1, William, addresses the new top squad, declaring that from now on, survival depends on performance. But before their training resumes, he reveals a mysterious vial for a secret blood awakening ceremony. He explains that the Cardenas bloodline holds a special organ, and this ritual will finally awaken its dormant power. The former rank finally understands their basic training and eagerly questions what kind of power this organ will grant them. The answer is absolute mana control, revealing why items like spirit stones were forbidden to them until now. Only after awakening this power can they prove their worth and join the legendary Young Dragon Knights. The strategist is stunned, as he was only aware of the 7 publicly known Knight orders. Leonard reveals the Young Dragon Knights are a secret combat unit designed to tailor training for each individual trainee. This is the true reason trainees are divided by their special organ, prompting a crucial question: is everyone's organ different? The shocking truth is unveiled: it's a manacore, a unique power system where every individual possesses a different attribute and number. The blue-haired trainee reveals the Cardenas family's legendary secret. Their bloodline is said to contain the power of dragons. The former rank 4 then explains the true power system of mana cores, where fewer cores means greater efficiency, and a single core is the ultimate ideal. He smugly declares himself to be one of these rare prodigies, much to the annoyance of everyone listening. But Leonard calmly shuts him down, explaining that a true single core is a talent that appears only once a decade. A flash of memory reveals Leonard's secret knowledge. He encountered a similar system in his past life, involving the 5 core elements of the universe. He then poses a chilling question to his squad: what would happen if someone possessed a pentacore, the most inefficient type possible? The group is stunned as he explains that every additional core exponentially increases the resources needed for training. A diagram shows the terrifying power scaling, where a dual core needs 4 times the effort and a triple core needs a staggering 9 times. The cost culminates in the pentacore, which requires an impossible 25 times the resources just to keep up. Leonard dismisses this as simple theory, and the strategist flinches. He's not sure their new leader's knowledge runs far deeper than he ever imagined. Verita jokes that with his overwhelming combat power, the entire manacore system is probably irrelevant for him anyway. But Leonard recalls a similar system from his past life, seeing a hidden opportunity where a pentacore could become the strongest of all. He casually explains that while true in theory, the insane resource cost creates an unbreakable ceiling on a person's potential. The others agree that having more cores is a clear disadvantage, with most hoping for a triple core at best. A chilling realization then dawns on the squad as they connect the dots. Leonard himself is the impossible pentacore. He reflects on his cursed fate, a heavenly genius with the sword, but shackled by a bloodline that made him a pariah. Standing alone in the grand hall, the weight of his impossible situation presses down on him. He grimaces with a wry smile, admitting that this was never part of his plan for this new life. Suddenly, his eyes flash a dangerous crimson as he makes a new, defiant resolve. An overwhelming aura erupts from his body, signaling his decision to shatter every single limit this world has placed upon him. Leonard stands before a powerful figure, who seems utterly impressed by his presence alone, as this new opponent reflects on how the boy dodged his attack, a feat impossible for someone so young. The man reveals himself as Commander Fabian of the Young Dragon Knights, confirming the unbelievable rumors surrounding this trainee are true. Leonard calmly introduces himself as the former rank 381, a number that clashes completely with the skill he just displayed. Fabian marvels at his refined technique without aura, but Leonard boldly challenges the very foundation of their power system. He argues that the presence of aura has nothing to do with martial skill, a statement that leaves the powerful commander momentarily stunned. But instead of anger, the commander erupts into a booming laugh, grabbing the boy with overwhelming force. He declares that the rumors didn't even come close to capturing his true potential, and that he loves this kid's attitude. The swordmaster then stakes his own name and reputation, promising Leonard a level of special treatment no one has ever received. To the absolute shock of his aide, the commander announces that this boy, once the lowest of the low, is now qualified for the highest tier. The aide breathlessly reports that Leonard awakened a pentacore, but the commander seems completely unfazed by the news. In fact, he roars that the number of cores doesn't matter in the slightest, lecturing his subordinate that when you find true talent, you must invest in it fully and ignore what anyone else says. To prove his point, he hands Leonard a dimensional bag packed with supplies, declaring him worthy of top-tier status. But as part of his special treatment, he grants the boy the ultimate privilege, the right to choose his own destiny. Suddenly, the hall shifts into a void filled with countless ethereal doors, each one a gateway to a different training ground. While everyone else is assigned a path, based on their supposed ability, Leonard alone is given the power to decide his fate. With unnerving calm, Leonard asks a simple question: which of these paths is actually worthy of his level? The commander explodes with approval, slapping the boy's back while proclaiming that a true warrior must walk the path of hardship. And with that, he points to the most ominous gateway of all, a place of pure darkness called Karabagos. The commander reveals the chosen path, Karabagos, the most remote and forbidden island in the entire empire. It is a brutal, untamed land where even knights perish, a demonic territory teeming with monstrous beasts. Yet, despite the clear danger, Leonard accepts this death sentence without a hint of fear, thanking the commander for the consideration. But the former Sword Emperor knows the secret. The reason pentacores are seen as failures is because no one understands their true potential. For him, mastering the 5 unified elements is not a curse, but the one path that could let him finally surpass his legendary past life. With a final wish of good luck, the commander sends him off, and Leonard walks alone into the blinding gateway of his new trial. He shields his eyes as he steps out of the portal, a world of unknown power waiting for him. He finds himself standing in a vast, ethereal forest, finally having arrived at the infamous Karabagos. But his moment of awe is shattered by a sudden, welcoming voice that seems to come from nowhere. A mysterious man with a powerful aura appears before him, impressed by his silent approach and asking if he is the legendary trainee everyone's been talking about. The mysterious man immediately confronts Leonard, questioning if he's the legendary trainee spoken of in rumors. Unfazed by the immense pressure, Leonard simply bows and introduces himself with calm respect. But this man is no mere observer. He reveals himself as Bradley, a senior knight and the absolute authority in this deadly training ground. Bradley quickly leads him away, his words hinting at other dangerous individuals already prowling these woods. He gives a vague warning about respecting seniors, but the Sword Emperor inside Leonard senses a hidden loophole in the command. A moment later, a critical rule is revealed. The seniors are strictly forbidden from interfering with first-year rookies. The terms of his brutal trial are laid out: 6 months of protection, followed by 6 months of absolute self-reliance. As night falls over the cursed forest, Bradley mentions Leonard's special treatment and offers a rare privilege not given to others. He's led to a hidden shelter, a small sanctuary equipped with basic necessities in this hostile land. But this is the only help he'll receive, as from this moment on, his survival hinges entirely on his own power to earn spirit stones. With his initial briefing finished, the overseer Bradley confidently asks if the new recruit has any questions. But Leonard immediately cuts to the core of his survival, demanding to know the difference between the protection and training periods. Bradley explains that for a time he'll offer full support, but afterwards, his protection is limited to stopping others from laying a hand on him. Unfazed, Leonard's next question reveals the brutal reality of this place as he confirms that killing is strictly forbidden. With the rules of engagement set, he then presses for the value of the resources he was given for this trial. Bradley opens the pack to reveal an unimaginable fortune: 3,000 spirit stones and hundreds of powerful elixirs. The sheer amount stuns the senior knight, who realizes this level of support is unheard of, even for the most elite bloodlines. Yet Leonard, a being from another era, has no idea what these glowing stones are, forcing a basic explanation of their power. Bradley calculates this treasure could push even a low-potential pentacore to the legendary 5th stage, introducing a power metric Leonard has never heard of. Seeing his confusion, the overseer prepares to reveal the secrets of this world's power system. Starting with how to measure a warrior's true realm, the senior knight begins to unravel the very fabric of power in this world, a ladder of 5 major realms that separate mortals from gods. It all begins with the body refinement realm, where a warrior forges their physical shell and expands their internal mana. Next, they learn to project that power outward, reaching the external power realm, where mana becomes a deadly, weaponized aura. The third step is the mysterious transcendent realm, a stage where one's unique individuality manifests as a distinct, undefinable power. Beyond that lies the terrifying demigod realm, a state where a warrior transcends their own mind to impose their will upon reality itself. And finally, the ultimate stage is revealed, where one sheds their humanity entirely to attain godhood. This is the legendary Divine Transformation Realm, a state of absolute power capable of slaying dragons. But the senior knight drops a bombshell. Besides the first ancestor of the Cardenas clan, no one in history has ever reached this peak. He scoffs with rage, declaring that fools dare to question the legacy of the ancestor who saved them all from a wicked dragon. With the lecture on godhood complete, Bradley turns to Leonard and announces that the real training is finally about to begin. Leonard is told his first trial is a simple task, mana cultivation. The senior knight explains he must use the resources to forge his abilities and expand his mana hole, with a final instruction to absorb ki from the spirit stones. The knight leaves him to his task. But as the colossal door slams shut, Leonard is left alone in the darkness, utterly confused by the apparent simplicity. He looks down at the glowing crystals, contemplating the true purpose of this so-called absorption training. Picking one up, he senses the abundant ambient mana, guessing the real difficulty must lie in the act of absorption itself. Suddenly, his expression hardens with confidence as he realizes this is a challenge he's uniquely prepared for. A smirk plays on his lips, remembering that he already mastered this exact process in his past life. Yet the moment he begins, he realizes something is terribly wrong. His body is suddenly overwhelmed by a torrent of power, absorbing energy at a speed that even the former Sword Emperor finds impossibly fast. Leonard clenches his fist in disbelief, having already reached the third stage in mere hours. With the memories of the Sword Emperor, this so-called trial is nothing more than a basic exercise he mastered long ago. However, a sudden realization stops him. Finishing this in a single day would expose a power level that defies all logic. He can practically feel the commander's hands on his shoulders, declaring him a prodigy beyond comprehension. A sly grin crosses his face as he decides to perfectly play the part of a genius, mastering his old techniques under a new guise. Meanwhile, deep within the forest of Carabagos, a group of trainees has been waiting. For a month and a half, they've watched the door to the training chamber, wondering when the rookie will finally emerge. They scoff that he's probably struggling to reach the 5th stage, the absolute minimum needed to avoid being killed out here. Annoyed, they turn their backs on the secluded chamber, deciding to focus on their own survival instead of some newbie. After all, their own skills are barely goblin level, and if they don't find food, they'll have to use up their life-saving spirit stones. One of the trainees complains the rookie has gone too far, while another scoffs that orc level is the weakest it gets out here anyway. Suddenly, a deafening crash shatters the silence as the training chamber door is completely blown off its hinges. A figure calmly steps out from the dust and splinters, finally emerging after a month and a half of isolation. It's Leonard Cardenas, who coolly decides it's time to get a real sword from the overseer, Sir Bradley. The overseer's voice immediately questions why he would make such a bold request so soon. Leonard explains that he must become accustomed to a real blade if he ever hopes to survive out here. He feigns humility, thinking he's being brazen for someone who's only gotten a little stronger. But as he speaks, an immense pressure erupts from his body, shattering the very ground and shocking the senior knight. Sir Bradley can only stare in utter disbelief at the raw power radiating from this supposed rookie. Meanwhile, Leonard knows the truth. He's already reached the 3rd stage in just 1 month, a feat thought impossible for a pentacore. Sir Bradley acknowledges the boy's growth is impressive, but it's not enough. He suddenly unleashes a terrifying killing intent, warning the apprentice not to get cocky, and Leonard realizes he can't even move against this power. But just as fast, the pressure vanishes as Bradley offers him a real sword, telling him not to be so scared. He then gives Leonard a final warning not to do anything reckless, which the boy gratefully accepts. Leonard immediately asks what happens if this precious sword breaks during his trial. In response, Bradley simply reveals a glowing spirit stone, explaining that's what they're for. With the terms set, the senior knight turns and leaves Leonard to face his destiny. Now armed with a real blade, Leonard unfurls a map, determined to begin his first true test. His destination is the dreaded Forest of Remnants, a place swarming with a horde of grotesque monsters. And deep within those woods, a creature's bare feet touch the ground, signaling that the hunt has already begun. The forest swarms with a horde of grotesque E2-ranked hobgoblins, all eyeing their next meal. But before they can even make a move, the first creature's head is instantly caved in. Leonard stands amidst the carnage, calmly remarking that the stench of blood is impossible to hide. With a powerful stomp that cracks the earth, he launches himself directly into the monster pack. He becomes a blur of blue energy, promising to put them out of their misery in a completely one-sided slaughter. As the first hobgoblin's body dissipates into dust, a glowing spirit stone is all that remains. Leonard reaches out, knowing that monsters expel their internal mana cores upon death. After cutting down 100 of them in a single day, he deems the results acceptable but not enough for true growth. Just then, he understands the forest's brutal food chain, as the hobgoblins themselves begin fleeing from a far greater predator. His instincts scream as he turns, sensing the approach of this new, powerful threat. He immediately identifies the new predator's scent as a gnoll, a far greater threat than the hobgoblins. His hand instinctively tightens on his sword hilt, preparing for a real battle. An oppressive aura washes over him, confirming the beast isn't even trying to hide its presence and sees him as mere prey. But instead of fear, Leonard smirks, annoyed at being so completely underestimated by a mindless monster. With his eyes glowing crimson, he issues a direct challenge, daring the beast to attack him head-on. The monstrous gnoll responds with a furious roar, its eyes crackling with raw power as it lunges forward. It swings a massive weapon with blinding speed, a blow meant to crush him in a single devastating strike. Yet with a calm, almost casual movement, Leonard effortlessly dodges the attack, completely unfazed. Now standing over the beast, he coldly tells the damn mutt to stop its useless barking. The gnoll can only let out another helpless roar, utterly dominated by a power it cannot comprehend. Leonard is stunned by the incredible power the monster used just to change his attack's trajectory. But he decides that if it's this strong, he'll simply have to erase it from existence. Suddenly, the gnoll's muscles begin to twitch and swell, overflowing with a dark, unnatural energy, and he quickly understands that this creature's strength is completely different from what he was taught. He recalls the standard monster ranking system, where an evolved hobgoblin is only rank E2, and a normal gnoll is classified as a mere rank D1 threat. Yet a monster's awakening is supposed to end after a single evolution, making this situation impossible. This beast is far stronger than even a D2, meaning it has undergone a second, unprecedented evolution. A system window then confirms his fears, classifying it as an advanced gnoll, a terrifying rank D3. A cruel smirk crosses his face as he prepares for some real training, unleashing an aura so immense the monster can only shriek in absolute terror. The evolved gnoll unleashes a ferocious wave of ki-infused energy with its axe. But Leonard lands gracefully, unimpressed by such a reckless attack. He easily sidesteps the furious swing, knowing a clumsy blow like that would never hit him. Their weapons clash with enough force to make sparks fly, proving the monster's surprising strength. As the beast's axe gets stuck in the shattered ground, Leonard seizes his chance. Realizing a simple sword strike won't work, he pivots in a flash, landing a clean, deep cut across the creature's unguarded back. Leonard calmly assesses its sturdy muscles and bones, but knows they can't protect a vital point as he drives his fist straight into its solar plexus. The devastating impact echoes through the silent, dead forest. To his surprise, Leonard looks down to see a glowing mana core revealed in the monster's chest where he struck. Leonard examines the mid-grade spirit stone, a rare prize worth 100 lesser ones. He realizes this forest is the perfect hunting ground to rapidly increase his internal energy. Surrounded by the fallen, he understands why this cursed place is shunned by others and decides he's finished for now. With his task complete, a mysterious glowing door appears before him in the woods. Back in his training room, Leonard sits in deep meditation, channeling the immense energy he's gathered. In a shocking surge of power, he realizes he has already broken through to the 10th stage of the body refining realm. But he knows that for a defective pentacore to achieve this in months would draw dangerous, unwanted attention. Meanwhile, his former rival William Cardenas begins to worry, questioning if something has happened to Leonard. Others complain that it's been 3 long months, and he hasn't been seen outside once. Suddenly, William and his squad are left speechless as they witness something completely unexpected. A senior lectures his junior, reminding him that a single connection to a powerful family is worth more than anything. He points toward a secluded shack, explaining that the #1 ranker, who even has the captain's eye on him, is inside. The junior, Hayden, is then forcefully shoved forward, ordered to at least go say hello and make an impression. Hesitantly approaching with a bucket, he calls out to the silent rookie, wondering if the isolation has already killed him. But inside, Leonard's eyes glow with intense power, fully aware that these so-called better seniors are snooping around his door. He has already caught a perfect glimpse of their faces, through a crack in the wall. Realizing his true power would draw suspicion, he decides to hide his identity under the guise of an old senior who's been stuck on the island for a decade. Standing alone in his room, he wonders if he can still pull off a long-forgotten technique. He begins to perform the reverse application art, a forbidden skill that manipulates his own facial muscles to create a flawless disguise. The act reminds him of his past life as the Sword Emperor, an era when his power was so absolute he never had a reason to hide his face from anyone. Leonard's entire being contorts as he unleashes the forbidden art, his features shifting under an immense surge of power. He can't believe he's been forced to use such a legendary technique just to hide his overwhelming strength in this desolate place. With the transformation complete, he decides to borrow the identity of the junior, Hayden, ensuring no one will ever recognize the monster in their midst. 3 months later, the scene shifts to the treacherous Bone Hill Swamp, a place where death lurks in every shadow. Now fully disguised, Leonard moves like a ghost, knowing the absolute rule for survival here is to completely mask your presence from the countless predators. He cautiously scans his surroundings, aware every creature in this cursed bog possesses deadly venom and some form of camouflage. A single moment of weakness is all it takes to be devoured by the vicious lizardmen that hunt beneath the murky waters. But Leonard is already a step ahead, identifying a B6 rank lizardman and preparing to end the confrontation with one decisive, overwhelming blow. He explodes from his hiding spot, launching himself at a massive beast as it erupts from the swamp in a spray of water. With a single, devastating strike, his sword completely obliterates the creature's head in a flash of raw, untamed power. His blade cuts clean through the monster, another kill in this godforsaken swamp. But the sound of battle was too loud, and he realizes he's just awakened the true boss of the area. A far larger, more intelligent lizardman rises from the depths, wielding a weapon and radiating immense killing intent. The beast lunges forward with terrifying speed, its eyes glowing with predatory hunger. Yet Leonard remains completely unfazed, already seeing through the creature's simple, predictable attack. He effortlessly dodges the clumsy swing, dismissing the beast as an amateur with no real combat training. With the boss defeated, a shimmering mid-grade spirit stone materializes from its remains. This brings his total to 1,500 stones, more than enough to finally advance to the next stage of power. However, breaking through to a new realm unleashes an overwhelming torrent of energy that can't be hidden. And if he reveals that level of power while disguised, his entire identity as the Sword Emperor Reborn will be exposed. Leonard knows that concealing the energy from his next breakthrough will be nearly impossible, so he immediately sets off into the dense forest to find a safe location. He desperately needs a secluded space to contain the coming mana explosion, somewhere hidden from prying eyes. Suddenly, his senses alert him to something just ahead, and he discovers a hidden clearing, an entire garden tended by a mysterious figure. The garden is filled with spirit grass, a plant with an even higher mana absorption rate than spirit stones, and the one tending to it is a massive cave troll. The creature instantly detects his presence and roars in fury. But before it can attack, Leonard feels another powerful presence approaching at incredible speed. In a flash of blue energy, a ferocious lycanthrope intercepts the troll, revealing itself as the area's true guardian. The two monsters clash in a violent storm of claws and magic, their battle shaking the very ground. Leonard realizes with a jolt that he's walked into a savage turf war between two terrifying monsters. He can only watch in shock as these beasts command the very power of nature, striking with lightning and making the earth roar. The massive cave troll effortlessly manipulates tons of earth and stone, a feat that even he would find difficult. But its opponent moves with impossible speed, dodging every attack like a living lightning bolt. The two titans face off in a clearing now torn apart by their power, the lycanthrope crackling with blue energy. With a furious roar, they lunge at each other in a blinding clash of primal rage and magic. Realizing this battle won't end anytime soon, Leonard sees his chance to slip away unnoticed. He decides that while the beasts are distracted, he can finally scout out the troll's cave. He quietly approaches the entrance, convinced that a creature of that level must be guarding some incredible treasure. As the sounds of combat fade behind him, he takes his first steps into the suffocating darkness of the unknown. He steps inside, the unnatural silence of the cave confirming this is the perfect place to achieve a major power-up. But what he finds inside defies all logic, a hidden sanctuary with a radiant golden tree at its heart. He immediately identifies the plants as valuable mid-grade spirit grass, questioning if the troll was somehow farming them. Yet something feels terribly wrong, as this immense power was completely undetectable just moments before. Reaching out, his hand crackles with energy as he tests the very air around him. Suddenly, his power collides with an invisible hexagonal barrier, revealing the source of the concealment. He realizes with a smirk that a sophisticated protective field has been hiding this treasure all along. Standing before the colossal golden tree, he can only marvel at the sheer impossibility of its existence. He gently touches a leaf, sensing an energy that transcends anything he's ever encountered before. The troll had no idea it was guarding a divine treasure, one that could allow him to break through to the next major realm instantly. Leonard's eyes narrow as he suddenly senses an unexpected presence. And the massive, bloodied troll appears behind him, declaring its sacred ground has been violated. In an instant, a wave of powerful ki surges forward. sending Leonard flying as he realizes the sanctuary's properties masked the monster's approach completely. But he quickly notices a weakness. The troll is still heavily wounded from its previous battle. Despite its injuries, the beast unleashes a devastating ground-shattering attack. Leonard gracefully evades the chaos, sword already in hand, but realizes the attack wasn't aimed at him, but at the entrance, sealing him inside. Trapped with no escape, a familiar, terrifying grin spreads across Leonard's face as he challenges the creature. The enraged troll charges forward, ready for a fight to the death. The forest floor trembles as massive impacts echo through the trees, and Leonard realizes with a grimace that the beast has already adapted, learning it can't win in a direct confrontation. So instead, the troll begins hurling massive boulders with reckless, overwhelming force. He narrowly evades the deadly barrage, knowing even a single hit would be instantly fatal. But a confident smirk crosses his face as he praises the monster's surprising cleverness. With a sharp glint in his eye, he decides that if the beast is getting serious, then so will he. Suddenly, an immense, crackling aura erupts from Leonard, warping the very air around him. He declares his intention to end this in a single strike, causing the monster to turn and face him. The troll responds with a ferocious growl, its own power flaring to meet the impossible challenge. Channeling a fiery regret from his past life as the Sword Emperor, Leonard unleashes a devastating final blow. The troll counters Leonard's ultimate attack with a desperate slam, engulfing the battlefield in a fiery explosion. Its fist shatters the very earth, a final act of defiance against an impossible foe. Wounded and on one knee, the beast finally understands how this boy defeated the sanctuary's other guardian. Leonard reveals his hidden dual attribute, a secret that sends the enraged troll into a furious growl. With a ground-shaking stomp, the monster cloaks itself in a searing inferno, its body now a weapon of pure heat. It begins a blind charge, but Leonard knows closing the distance is no longer an option. He leaps back, realizing the troll's intense aura would instantly incinerate him on contact. With a calm, focused gaze, he understands there is only one path to victory, a single, perfectly timed strike. He watches from above, calculating that the creature's forward lunge will create a fatal opening. Poised in the air, he dares the troll to attack, baiting it into the very move that will seal its doom. The troll takes its final, fatal step forward as Leonard roars that his chance is now. He becomes a blur of motion, driving his sword straight through the guardian's chest. The impact sends a jolt through him, a feeling that stirs memories of a forgotten life. A torrent of blue energy erupts from the monster's throat as Leonard knows the battle is finally over. The colossal beast loses all strength, toppling backward into the sea of flames. He's thrown violently into the air, caught in the backlash of the creature's demise. But he lands with perfect control, his gaze fixed upon the defeated monster below. Suddenly, he realizes it's not over, as a massive hand lunges from the fire to grab him. But the internal energy he unleashed detonates, causing the beast to scream as it's torn apart from the inside. Standing over the crumbling remains, he confirms that his strike through its chest was indeed the end of it. Leonard suddenly senses a final, desperate surge of power from his fallen enemy. The monster's giant hand crumbles away, revealing a pulsating, unstable core where his strike landed. This crystal heart begins to crack and glow ominously, preparing to self-destruct. In an instant, it detonates in a cataclysmic explosion that vaporizes everything around it. A blinding wave of fire and force rips through the ancient sanctuary. The aftermath leaves nothing but scorched earth and raging, untamed flames. Caught completely off guard, Leonard realizes with horror that he's too close to escape the blast. The shockwave throws him violently through the air like a rag doll. He's sent crashing hard against a tree with a bone-shattering impact. Collapsing to the ground and coughing up blood, he feels the devastating cost of his victory. Trapped in a raging inferno, Leonard knows he only has 5 minutes before the entire cave is scorched clean. With no hope of rescue arriving in this isolated sanctuary, he realizes he's completely on his own. But there's one desperate gamble left, using a mountain of spirit stones to force a breakthrough that will heal his shattered body. Without a moment's hesitation, he plunges his bleeding hand directly into the pile of raw energy. A torrent of pure mana surges through his broken circuits, an agonizing process he must endure to survive. The immense power of 1/600 spirit stones begins to mend his very core, but even this is not enough. Trembling on his feet, he knows he needs more, something far greater to push him over the edge. In a final, desperate move, he resolves to absorb every last drop of energy from the spirit grass itself. He consumes the raw, untamed life force directly, pushing his body to its absolute limit. Finally, the preparations are complete as an uncontrollable vortex of power erupts, threatening to tear him apart from the inside out. His 5 cores, once separate, suddenly begin to spin in perfect unison, and all of his scattered chi starts to converge, condensing into a single, blinding point of light. An unbelievable power thrums through his body, feeling like a brand new heart beating in his chest. His body is completely healed, but the power refuses to stop, manifesting as a colossal dragon's aura that far surpasses human limits. The chaotic energy finally settles, integrating into his very being and pushing him into an entirely new realm of existence. This single leap in power is something senior trainees have failed to achieve for years, a feat that will undoubtedly cause a massive stir. As he examines his hand, he realizes not only are his wounds gone, but his mana now flows faster and stronger than ever before. He's in disbelief that crossing just one major threshold could grant him such an astronomical level of growth. Yet a mystery remains. How did he survive a massive explosion in this sealed space without feeling any of the intense heat? Then his eyes fall upon a mysterious glowing orb, and he finally understands the source of his impossible survival. The brilliant light vanishes, leaving behind a single, mysterious glowing fruit in its place. He realizes it was the tree's immense spiritual energy that protected the entire cave from the fiery blast. As he holds the orb, a strange sense of familiarity hums from deep within it. He suspects this tiny fruit somehow absorbed all the chaotic mana from the explosion. Vowing to honor its sacrifice, he carefully stores his unlikely lifesaver to plant in a new spot. With his body overflowing with newfound strength, he leaps from the crumbling cave in a single bound. He knows he must return quickly, before his prolonged absence raises any suspicion among the knights. As he lands back in the forest, the sheer force of his arrival shatters the ground beneath his feet. He then blazes through the trees, moving at a speed he never thought possible before. A smirk crosses his face as he realizes he's become almost too strong, hoping this massive power-up won't cause too much trouble. Having survived a life-or-death battle, Leonard finally lays eyes on the training grounds through the dense forest. He breathes a sigh of relief, realizing he's returned just in time to avoid raising any serious suspicion. But his battle-torn clothes are a problem, and he knows explaining his absence to the seniors will be a massive headache. Suddenly, just after changing, he senses a presence behind him. Realizing he's been found, a group of senior trainees emerges, shocked to see the entrance door open when it should have been sealed. Their frontman, a cocky swordsman named Ian, steps forward with a fake smile, demanding the newcomer address him as senior. Unfazed by the pathetic power play, Leonard simply states his name, his expression completely ice-cold. The facade crumbles instantly as Ian gets to the point, challenging him to a duel under the guise of asking for pointers. Seeing the obvious trap, Leonard plays along with feigned humility, stating it would be his honor to learn from his senior. Behind them, the true leader of the bullies smirks, confident their prey has just walked right into their ambush. Ian smirks, planning to teach the rookie the meaning of being a Cardinus Knight. He's completely confident he seized the initiative, unaware of the monster he just provoked. But the fight is over in an instant, as Leonard sends the senior trainee flying with a single, effortless motion, crashing to the ground. Ian can only mutter that he lost in a completely one-sided defeat. Just moments earlier, the clash of their wooden swords had echoed through the training grounds. Leonard easily dodged every clumsy attack, moving with a grace that defied his rookie status. His opponent was completely bewildered, unable to comprehend how a newcomer could possess such impossible skill. Ian is thrown off balance by a powerful counter, his defense shattering under Leonard's relentless pressure. Suddenly, Leonard's wooden sword begins to glow with a terrifying, fiery aura. His opponent screams in terror, accusing him of using mana in a simple sparring match, something that should be completely impossible. The senior trainees rush over in a panic, asking if Leonard is okay, but he simply stands there, examining his hand. He calmly apologizes, explaining that he used a self-defense technique purely on reflex. But as he stares at his bloodied palm, he realizes a terrifying truth. In this world, mana alone can deal damage, and pure swordsmanship is not the ultimate power. A subtle, almost dangerous smirk appears on his face as this new understanding of combat sinks in. His defeated opponent is completely baffled, asking why he isn't angry, while Leonard internally reflects that he still has so much more to learn. Gripping the wooden practice sword, he confidently states that he looks forward to their future sessions. With a chilling grin, he then proposes they spar every single night, an offer the senior eagerly accepts to build a connection with this monstrous rookie. A few days later, a fist clenches in anticipation for another round of training. But when Ian appears at his door, he looks completely stressed, suddenly calling off their practice for the day. Leonard immediately senses something is wrong, noticing the other seniors are gone, and that Ian is dressed for battle, sparking the ominous question of whether they've been deployed on a real mission. Ian explains there was a huge explosion near the Bone Mountain Marsh, while Leonard is secretly relieved that he isn't a suspect. The official story is a terrifying turf war between two true Demon Realm monsters, a lycanthrope and a troll. The battle's aftermath was a complete bloodbath, with both beasts torn to shreds, forcing the knights to swarm the area. Now, Ian's squad is being deployed to clean up the mess, and he warns Leonard to stay back since he isn't ready for real combat. But before leaving, he pulls Leonard aside, revealing he has something special for him. He presents a bundle of 5 new practice swords, a clear acknowledgement of the rookie's monstrous training, with a hopeful thumbs up. Ian asks only to be remembered when Leonard inevitably becomes a legend. As he walks away, he leaves a final warning. A sword alone can't solve everything in this world. Leonard is left stunned, realizing the incident he caused was so massive it mobilized the entire Knight Order. With the entire Knight Order distracted, Leonard realizes this is the perfect chance to move unseen. He decides to act boldly, even though using his disguise technique carries a heavy risk. Knowing the senior squads are preoccupied, he understands that being discovered now would only create more chaos. He resolves to use the fake lycanthrope incident as the ultimate cover for his true objective. This golden opportunity allows him to finally move freely through the forbidden territories. With his plan set, he heads to the opposite side of the training area, far from prying eyes. His destination is a place he's longed to see, the mysterious and unexplored Owl Plains. But upon arrival, an eerie silence descends as he feels something powerful watching him from the fog. A piercing killing intent washes over him, yet for some unknown reason, the hidden enemy refuses to attack. Leonard grows tired of the stalemate, calling out the hidden predator for being cautious or just plain afraid. Suddenly, a monstrous shadow explodes from the fog with terrifying speed, launching a direct assault. The creature reveals itself to be a massive owlbear, descending from the sky with razor-sharp talons. Unfazed, Leonard pulls back his hood, his crimson eyes locking onto his opponent as he calmly identifies the first challenger. He draws his blade with a smirk, declaring that a beast of this level is nothing more than a perfect warm-up. Meanwhile, at a different time, a fleet of ships arrives at the infamous Karabagos Island as the sun rises. A shadowy group disembarks onto the shore, where a grim report reveals that 2 of their 32 members are already missing. The leader laments their sacrifice, stating they fell for the glory of their homeland, Curtsies. But beneath the sorrow lies a cold fury, as the one known as the 5th Shadow of Curtsies glares with glowing eyes, questioning the very heavens. He rallies his Shadow Knights, vowing to complete their mission for the glory of Curtsies, as their true objective is revealed, to capture the Cardina's apprentices and uncover the secret of their tainted blood. With ruthless determination, he orders his assassins to show no mercy, declaring even the children to be the seat of all evil. Elsewhere on the island, the wind howls across a desolate, empty plain. Here, one of the assassins stumbles forward, realizing he's been separated from his comrades. He remembers the island's brutality as his squad was overwhelmed by A-rank monsters, unable to fight without their captain. Panicked, he now wonders what the demons of Cardenas are even doing on this death trap of an island. Yet he foolishly convinces himself the path ahead is safer, believing the mission will be easy from here. But suddenly, a massive owlbear charges forward, a beast he arrogantly believes he can handle all by himself. The assassin leaps forward, sword ready to finally strike down the owlbear. But he recoils in shock, realizing the colossal beast is already dead. Standing atop the corpse, a chilling thought crosses his mind. Was someone else here? His eyes dart across the empty plains, a feeling of unease growing with every second. Then he sees it. A battlefield littered with the corpses of high-level monsters, all skillfully slain. Suddenly, a rock hurtles toward his face, and he barely deflects it while demanding his attacker show themselves. A new figure appears from the dust, retorting that he's the one who should be asking questions. An invisible pressure wave sends the assassin staggering back as a young man with reddish blonde hair reveals himself, asking who he is. Seeing the assassin want talk, Leonard's aura flares theirs as he decides he'll just have to tear the answers out of him. The assassin recoils in shock, recognizing the overwhelming pressure from that voice. Gripping his blade, he decides to go on the offensive, channeling his full power. He lunges forward in a blur of golden light, unleashing a killing blow meant to end this instantly. But Leonard remains completely unfazed, his piercing eyes noting the raw killing intent behind the attack. With a deafening clang, the boy easily parries the strike, leaving the assassin stunned that a mere kid could possess such power. Realizing he's hopelessly outmatched, the assassin desperately tries to create some distance. But he's sent flying backward as Leonard closes the gap in the blink of an eye. Leonard's counterattack lands with explosive force, shattering the assassin's guard with a blast of purple energy. Yet his blade stops just short, blocked by an unseen force as he realizes his target is protected by a powerful magic artifact. Pushed to his absolute limit, the assassin unleashes his blade's hidden power, a golden venomous snake he never wanted to reveal. But Leonard calmly analyzes the technique, recognizing it as nothing more than a cunning assassination art. With a confident smirk, he dismisses the attack as crude, claiming he can read the assassin's soul like an open book. Their blades clash with incredible force, as Leonard mocks him for only ever having fought weaklings. The assassin begins to sweat, the crushing pressure from the boy's power proving to be an impassable wall. Suddenly, dark, ethereal chains begin to manifest, wrapping around Leonard and his blade. The assassin reveals his final gambit, convinced that sealing both the boy and his sword is his only path to victory. But as the chains bind his arm, Leonard scoffs at the foolish assumption that neutralizing his sword would ever be enough. A massive surge of dark energy erupts from his body, proving this fight was over from the start. With a single, devastating swing, Leonard effortlessly shatters the assassin's ultimate sealing technique. The killer can't comprehend this overwhelming power, wondering if the boy has already reached the legendary state of awakening. Later that night, under the cold light of the moon, the confrontation reaches its final stage. The victor approaches his now helpless captive. Leonard stands over the bound assassin, calmly stating that with his mana sealed, his life is now completely forfeit. But even in defeat, the assassin can only grit his teeth and spit the word coward. He erupts in fury, screaming that the Cardenas demon used a vile plan and will never be forgiven. Leonard is momentarily taken aback, genuinely confused by the sheer audacity of the accusation. He then points to the man's own glowing artifact, calling his hypocrisy pathetic. The captive screams that there's no cowardice when facing a Cardenas, vowing to expose his twisted power to the world. Suddenly, Leonard's unseen pressure causes the assassin to flinch in genuine fear. With a bruised face, the man screams in defiance, daring Leonard to just kill him. But Leonard coldly informs him that the choice of life or death is his alone to make. The assassin spits back that hell die before speaking, cursing the impure blood of his captor's family. This strange accusation finally piques Leonard's interest, making him question the true nature of the Cardenas bloodline. The assassin insists that the sin flowing through Leonard's veins is an undeniable truth. He then reveals a terrifying secret, screaming that the Cardenas are not human and possess a monstrous strength known only to his people. Realizing his captive holds the key to a massive conspiracy, Leonard smirks, ready to uncover just how much he truly knows. Under the full moon, Leonard coldly demands to know the secret of his bloodline. The captured assassin screams back, questioning why the Cardenas clan has no outside branches and hides its origins as if it has something to fear. But Leonard remains completely unfazed by the outburst, listening with a cold indifference. He mocks the assassin's cause, asking if Cardenas' power is so enviable that it drives them to kidnap children, then points out the childish restraints used to bind him. Walking away, he dismisses his captive's entire organization as third-rate fringe dwellers with neither strength nor honor. Suddenly, he closes the distance, his red eyes glowing as he taunts the man about facing his ancestors in such a pathetic state. The assassin finally snaps, screaming for Leonard not to push his luck and revealing he is insulting the name of Curtses. With a flash of blue energy, Leonard reveals he already knew the man's origin, leaving his captive utterly stunned. He calmly explains that a panicked mind often forgets the most obvious details. Then, pointing a single finger, Leonard declares that the assassin's mana circuits will soon break, but not before he confesses every last secret. The tale of Curtses begins, a once holy kingdom for knights now lost to the embers of war. Their history was rewritten by a single, crushing defeat at the hands of the Cardenas Red Dragon Knights, who usurped their title. Leonard pieces it all together, realizing their desperate attempt to reclaim lost glory led them to attack his family. He understands they seek the secret of the Cardenas bloodline, a mystery that, ironically, he also wishes to solve. But the assassin's thoughts reveal a terrifying complication. A powerhouse of the transcendent realm has already arrived on the island. The stakes have just skyrocketed, and Leonard knows he must immediately warn Lord Bradley about this new threat. With no time left for talk, he ignites his sword with a brilliant blue aura, ready to force the final answers. His eyes narrow with grim certainty as he identifies the true enemy, the infamous Shadow Knights of Curtses. He knows the apprentice knights are no match for such a foe, realizing the island has become a death trap. In a flash of steel, he ends the conversation, declaring there's no time for enemies when a master-level killer is on the loose. Leonard senses the assassin's lingering power, unimpressed and calling it a mere imitation. But standing over the defeated foe, he declares that this level of strength will be more than enough for his plans. With the battle won, He calmly loots the valuable magic items from the assassin's corpse. He then effortlessly throws the body over his shoulder, silently daring any objections. And with that, he vanishes into the night, leaving no trace of the one-sided confrontation behind. Meanwhile, back at the Knighthood's temporary encampment, the trainees are finally getting a moment of peace. Ian and his squadmates breathe a sigh of relief, thankful for a break after the sudden mobilization that shook the entire island. But their peace is shattered when one of the trainees spots something unsettling in the distance, his voice trembling with fear. They rush over only to find a corpse emanating a strange blue flame, and a horrified scream reveals the victim is none other than Lord Bradley. Ian freezes in utter disbelief, realizing a high-ranking knight has just been murdered right under their noses. The lead knight realizes the victim was killed by an aura blade, a technique only a true swordmaster can execute, and a note found on the body seems to confirm the impossible, though he senses a deeper deception. Because it's a fabricated confession, a pathetic attempt to frame the dead man for attacking the trainees. But he knows the real threat is the Shadow Knights of Curses, led by a powerhouse from the Transcendent Realm, and he sweats in cold fear, realizing that even their combined forces are nothing against such a monster. So in a desperate move, he orders Ian to sound the alarm across the entire island, declaring an emergency. Suddenly, a wailing siren shatters the peace, a desperate cry for battle that sends a shockwave through the camp. Trainees pour out from every building, scrambling to mobilize for a war they don't even understand. The ground itself trembles with the sound of thousands of boots as the entire knighthood rushes to face their doom. But from the sidelines, Leonard calmly watches the chaos, satisfied that his plan to use Lord Bradley's death is working perfectly. A knight captain screams to his men that this is not a drill, because formidable intruders have finally breached the island's defenses, and their power level is absolutely terrifying. 30 warriors beyond the 6th stage, and one transcendent swordmaster among them. A being described as a walking disaster on par with their own commander Fabian, against whom numbers mean nothing. So he gives the young apprentices a grim choice. Activate the spatial gate now and flee to await reinforcements, or stay and face an unwinnable battle head-on, a decision that will determine their very survival. Privately, the captain knows it's a valuable experience, but fully expects them to withdraw to save their own lives. Yet as the others tremble in fear, Leonard's eyes simply narrow with a chilling, unreadable calm. Suddenly, one trainee shatters the silence, roaring out his courageous decision to fight, which ignites a fire in William Cardenas and the others, who rally together. Refusing to go down without a fight, Leonard watches on, quietly admitting that he misjudged the heart of a true knight. Inspired, the trainees raise their swords as one, their battle cry shaking the very foundations of the hall. The commander stands before the unified army of apprentices, their decision now irreversible. A faint, proud smirk appears on his face as he acknowledges their courage. He praises their choice but reminds them that fighting a transcendent is a different league entirely, vowing to request backup from Captain Fabian. With the battle imminent, he tells everyone to steel themselves for the fight of their lives. But while the knights prepare for war, Leonard slips away to a hidden location. He arrives at a secret pit he had prepared near his bed, knowing he'd need it soon. Seeing his evacuation as a protected subject as the perfect cover, he decides to examine the magic items he received from the dead assassin. While most of the artifacts are broken, he discovers a single, powerful magic ring that seems perfectly usable. He tries to activate the powerful magic ring, but his body violently rejects the external mana. Even as he slips the gleaming artifact onto his finger, a strange power pushes back. Leonard quickly realizes his own heart is a fortress, completely blocking outside energy and rendering all magic items useless to him. But there's one item that doesn't need his mana, the Shadow Knight's signal device, and he already knows how to use it. With this, he can launch a devastating surprise attack or use the enemy as a decoy if he's found. He activates his own power and blazes across the island, knowing the only real threat is the enemy's swordmaster. With a cold, determined glare, he vows that he will not let his enemies have their way. Leonard moves at an impossible speed, becoming nothing but a blur against the landscape. Suddenly, the device activates with a call for reinforcements, confirming his targets are close and completely unaware that he is the one responding. He rushes towards their location, ready to seize control while they're shaken and unprepared for the monster they've just summoned. In the desolate landscape of Lion's Valley, a terrifying purple energy begins to surge from the ground. Suddenly, a massive shockwave erupts, tearing the very earth apart in a devastating blast. The attack instantly vaporizes 2 assassins, whose last words curse Cardenas for the cowardly ambush. But their true enemy isn't a person at all. It's an impossible A-rank manticore that they've foolishly cornered. The beast unleashes another wave of power, proving its strength is on a completely different level. The surviving assassins turn to flee in terror, screaming that their only hope is the comrade who is on his way. They cling to the idea that if their ally arrives, they might just stand a chance against this lone monster. But as a new, overwhelming presence appears, one of them looks back in dawning horror, realizing this isn't the reinforcement they were expecting. In a single, blinding flash, Leonard Cardenas appears among them, instantly cutting down 3 men before they can even react. The leader can only stare in disbelief, wondering how this monster knew how to answer their call for help. Revealing that with a little provocation, he's already figured out the true extent of his enemy's power. The last surviving assassin can only scream in fury, calling him a coward for the ambush, but Leonard remains completely unfazed, calmly stating that the man has let his emotions cloud his vision. Enraged, the assassin charges forward, shouting that this is revenge for his fallen comrades. Suddenly, his body is ripped apart by an unseen force, erupting in a gruesome spray of blood. Leonard coldly asks if he'd forgotten the real enemy he was fighting, the manticore. And there it is, a terrifying A-rank beast with the body of a lion and the face of a troll. The monster unleashes a devastating wave of raw, destructive energy. Yet even before this impossible foe, Leonard stands his ground, completely unimpressed by its display of power. He then poses a chilling question, not to a beast, but to the strangely human face before him, asking who it truly is. The beast with a human face utters a single, impossible word, shocking Leonard to his core. He can't believe it, a monster is speaking to him in perfect human language. Then, in a stunning admission, the manticore confesses that if they were to fight, it would be the one to die. But it warns that it can buy enough time for a far greater threat to arrive, someone who will surely kill him. A chilling vision flashes of a cloaked figure, a being of incomparable and overwhelming strength. Leonard immediately understands this is the assassin's leader, the fifth shadow, a man more dangerous than every other enemy on this island combined. He's a true swordmaster, a realm of power Leonard admits he stands no chance against at his current level. Despite the dire warning, he scoffs at the idea of believing a monster's words. The beast challenges him one last time, daring him to attack if he truly isn't afraid to die. Yet Leonard simply turns away, letting it go for now but promising there will be no second chance. Leonard calmly turns his back, walking away from the colossal monster he just spared. Enraged by the disrespect, the manticore roars that he's a fool and unleashes its full, terrifying power to strike him from behind. But Leonard doesn't even flinch, knowing the beast's treachery was inevitable. He instantly pivots, unleashing a torrent of brilliant blue ki that shatters the very ground beneath him. The first strike is a blinding beam aimed directly at its head, as the monster realizes with horror that it walked right into his trap, screaming for him to die. The beast retaliates with a wave of dark energy, but Leonard is already moving far too fast. He declares he can't stay long before systematically targeting its second and third hearts in a flurry of unstoppable attacks. Suddenly, just as he's about to deliver the final blow, his eyes snap upward, sensing an entirely new level of power descending upon the battlefield. A familiar green gem falls from the sky, and in a flash of recognition, Leonard knows exactly who has arrived. A cloaked figure plummets from the heavens, snatching the gem mid-air as the true enemy, the fifth shadow, finally makes his entrance. He lands with enough force to shatter the ground, his presence instantly dominating the ravaged battlefield. With a swift motion, he retrieves the glowing green gem from the dirt, the last remnant of the defeated manticore. Clutching it with regret, he laments that he was too late, revealing they had a shared goal that has now failed. But his sorrow quickly turns to cold fury as his glowing eyes scan the desolate landscape for any survivors. Suddenly, he unleashes a terrifying wave of green energy, demanding to know who else dares to be present. The entire area erupts in a storm of his overwhelming aura, a power completely transcending anything seen before. Meanwhile, hidden behind the rocks, Leonard watches on, his expression grim and tense. He realizes with dread that this new enemy can sense him even from this distance, and staying means certain death. Relying on his hidden arts to mask his presence, Leonard makes a desperate dash to escape the transcendent being's range. But the fifth shadow has already begun to move, taking a silent, predatory step forward to begin the hunt. The fifth shadow stands over a desolate battlefield, wondering if the presence he sensed was just his imagination. He grits his teeth in annoyance, believing his intuition is dulled, because the plan was disrupted more than he expected. Looking upon the swords of his fallen men, he makes a solemn vow that their lives will not go to waste. But a cruel smirk appears on his face as he confirms that his primary objective has already been achieved. Meanwhile, Leonard bursts from the ground, having survived the overwhelming attack only by burying himself deep in the earth. He discovers a dying knight but can only state the grim reality that he has arrived far too late. The wounded man is shocked to see a mere apprentice, knight still standing amidst the carnage. With his last breath, he reveals the horrifying truth. A single swordmaster instantly wiped out 43 intermediate knights. But the 8 apprentice knights who joined the search were not killed, instead suffering a far worse fate. Leonard can only watch in horror as his captured comrades are shackled and marched away like cattle. Leonard stands alone amidst the carnage, realizing with a cold certainty that his comrades have already been taken. He desperately tries to understand how the enemy could have slipped away while dragging along so many hostages. His mind races, deducing their goal is to secure live test subjects, meaning they had to be transported quickly and safely. He remembers his interrogation of a captured assassin, suddenly understanding there is only one possible explanation. The enemy used a rare and powerful mass teleport scroll to vanish without a trace. With the enemy's objective already achieved, Leonard knows he must hurry before it's too late. But a grim determination settles on his face as he realizes such a large-scale spell requires a vast, open space, giving him a clue to their destination. He approaches the last dying knight, who confirms a search of the area is already underway. Offering the man a final moment of peace, Leonard places a glowing hand upon his shoulder. But instead of comfort, he delivers a swift and merciless end, ensuring no secrets are left behind. With his tracks covered, Leonard's voice confirms his perfect deception. Sir Bradley was looking in completely the wrong place. This entire scheme began because he knew House Cardenas was walking into a devastating trap, but as a mere cadet, his warnings would be ignored. So he took matters into his own hands, orchestrating the brutal murder of Sir Bradley to force the entire island into action. His gambit worked perfectly, mobilizing the whole knighthood into a massive search party across the forest. Meanwhile, the knight captain arrives at the designated meeting point, only to find it completely empty, cursing the apprentices as cowards for fleeing. But suddenly, he senses a powerful presence and whirls around, demanding to know who's there. A lone figure blurs past his men with impossible speed, leaving the entire squad stunned in his wake. The commander's eyes widen in shock, believing the intruder's movements could only belong to a remnant from curtsies. But as the mysterious figure lands, his identity is not what the captain expected at all. Before the knights can obey the furious order to eliminate him, Leonard activates a powerful artifact. Ready to make his next move, Leonard taunts the knights, telling them to follow as he dashes into the burning forest. The enraged commander orders his men not to let him escape, unleashing a storm of blades. But Leonard weaves through the onslaught with inhuman speed and precision, dodging every single strike. He effortlessly flows past their attacks, remaining completely untouched by their fury. In a flash, he closes the distance on one knight, moving faster than they can even react. The commander curses his incredible speed, mistaking him for one of the elite Curses assassins they're hunting. This was all part of the plan, however, as Leonard confirms his success in luring them this far. Blinded by rage, the commander continues his relentless pursuit, determined to catch his target. Suddenly, he freezes mid-stride as a horrifying realization finally dawns upon him. He's been led to the coast, only to discover the cold, lifeless body of Sir Bradley. Leonard watches from the shadows, knowing his plan has worked and the real enemy is finally about to appear. Suddenly, a transcendent being descends upon the shore, mocking the knight captain as nothing more than a Cardenas dog. The captain demands to know if this monster is the mastermind, but the villain reveals this chaos is only a small step in his grand design. Enraged, the captain declares he won't escape, only for the invader to calmly tell him not to be so impatient. The villain laughs maniacally, questioning if they truly believed his forces would invade without a perfect plan in place. He then declares the fight is already over, as a mysterious magic circle begins to glow all around them. The captain realizes in horror that it's a mass teleportation spell and screams that he won't let them get away. But the villain just smirks, revealing they have 15 minutes before it's ready, and he will personally be the captain's opponent until then. He unleashes a torrent of malevolent green energy, telling the captain to struggle as much as he wants. The commander can only brace himself, sweating in terror before an opponent on an entirely different level of power. From the shadows, Leonard watches the hopeless battle, telling the knights to just hold on a little longer. With cold determination, he vows that he will be the one to rescue them. Meanwhile, deep within the enemy camp, a massive teleportation circle glows, ready to steal away the island's future. Under the cover of chaos, a cloaked figure slips past the enemy lines completely undetected. Leonard realizes the guards are distracted by the main duel, giving him the perfect chance to strike. He arrives just in time to find the captured senior trainees, including Ian, bound and helpless. Their hands are sealed by powerful magic shackles designed to suppress all their abilities. But with a single flash of overwhelming blue energy, the seemingly unbreakable seals are instantly shattered. Ian can only stare in disbelief as the purple chains that held him crumble into dust. He whirls around to face his savior, demanding to know why an outsider would risk everything to help them. The mysterious rescuer coldly states he has no time for explanations and orders the trainees to escape immediately. The freed captives, including Ian, can only stare in confusion at the man who just saved their lives. But instead of leaving, Ian speaks on behalf of all the captured knights. They all bow in a show of deepest gratitude, a moment of respect amidst the chaos. Suddenly, the ground shakes as an immense power slams down nearby. With the hostages now safe, Leonard declares that phase of his plan complete. Now, drawing a second blade, he turns his glowing eyes to the real threat lurking in the shadows. An explosion of pure blue energy erupts from his body as he charges forward in a blinding flash. He cuts a bloody path through the enemy forces, coldly declaring it's time to take out the trash. But just as victory seems certain, a devastating crimson attack slams into him, proving this fight is far from over. The island's knight captain is brutally cut down by a blade of pure green energy. His attacker, a terrifying figure in dark armor, mockingly calls the slaughter a mere opening act. The fifth shadow declares their pathetic game is over, promising the rise of Curses. But suddenly, his glowing red eye narrows as he senses a familiar, meddlesome presence approaching. A blinding light erupts in the distance, heralding the arrival of a new challenger. In a storm of green ki, Leonard Cardenas descends upon the battlefield like a vengeful god. With his sword drawn and eyes blazing, he finally comes face to face with the legendary Fifth Shadow. The Shadow sneers in disappointment, unable to believe this mere brat is the one who ruined all their plans. Vowing to appease the souls of his fallen men, he ignites his sword and promises to eliminate Leonard personally. As they stand amidst the bodies of the fallen, a colossal magic circle fills the sky, signaling the start of a battle that will shake the very heavens. The Fifth Shadow stands coldly over the last of his fallen men, his silence betraying a building storm of fury. He looks up in utter disbelief, demanding to know if this single boy truly slaughtered all of his elite soldiers. In a heartbeat, his shock explodes into pure rage as he screams, "How dare you kill my comrades?" Vowing to tear the Cardenas devil limb from limb, the transcendent warrior lunges forward, unleashing a level of swordsmanship Leonard has never seen before. But the boy meets the furious assault head-on, erupting in a brilliant storm of blue-green energy. The Shadow freezes, stunned that a mere brat could possibly wield an aura blade, a technique that should be far beyond his reach. Knowing he can only maintain this power for 3 minutes, Leonard unleashes a relentless flurry, determined to end this fight now. In response, the Fifth Shadow unleashes a desperate, earth-shattering slash, screaming for his opponent to finally die. But as the Shadow loses his composure, his attacks become wild and predictable, allowing Leonard to effortlessly parry every single blow. With his enemy's guard completely broken, Leonard realizes he can do more than just defend. He can finally launch the perfect counterattack. Leonard pushes forward, believing his only path to victory is to close the distance and strike. But the Fifth Shadow grins with horrifying malice, revealing that the boy has walked right into his trap. He boasts about the severance venom coating his claws, a poison so potent that even a trace amount is lethal. A spectral serpent of venom courses through Leonard's body, aiming to sever his mana and pulse forever. Yet, instead of panicking, Leonard casually thanks him for the explanation, before smacking the transcendent warrior across the face. Inside his body, the deadly venom shatters against an impenetrable wall of pure blue energy. The poison that should have killed him in seconds is utterly annihilated by his overwhelming aura. The Fifth Shadow can only scream in disbelief, his ultimate trump card rendered completely useless. Leonard coolly dismisses his questions, declaring he has no need to know as he unleashes a devastating final blow. The so-called master cries out in agony as the boy's attack lands true, completely shattering his guard. The Fifth Shadow's eyes widen in sheer disbelief as his power is completely negated. So he unleashes his true might, summoning massive spectral serpents to crush his opponent. But Leonard remains unfazed, standing as a calm wall against the transcendent-level onslaught, and he questions if the so-called master has gone berserk, thinking such a mindless barrage could ever hit him. Realizing a direct approach is futile against the storm of energy, Leonard decides on a new strategy, unleashing a spiraling vortex of his own. A maelstrom of blue aura that devours the serpent attacks whole. The counterattack slams into the Fifth Shadow with unstoppable force, throwing him back in agony. Enraged and humiliated, the master can only scream curses at the boy who has completely broken him. A dark resolve hardens his expression as he prepares to make his final, desperate move. Vowing that, even if it costs him his life, He will drag this monstrous trainee down with him. The fifth shadow unleashes a final, desperate storm of chaotic energy to annihilate his foe. But Leonard sees through the desperation, realizing his opponent is pushing his mana to the absolute limit. Planting his feet firmly, Leonard prepares to charge directly into the maw of the attack. He instantly identifies the terrifying serpent assault as nothing more than an elaborate feint. With calm precision, he weaves through the onslaught, determined to cut them all down. He focuses all his remaining power into his blade for a single decisive strike. The blade sings as it slices a clean path through the torrent of dark magic. Suddenly, he breaks through the chaos, closing the distance to his stunned opponent in an instant. Instead of his sword, he slams a fist glowing with raw power directly into the master's chest. A mysterious runic seal erupts from the point of impact, completely immobilizing the transcendent being with a technique called shockbound. The fifth shadow unleashes a hidden magic tool, blasting Leonard back in a shocking reversal. Before the boy can react, the master's hand closes in with terrifying speed. He grabs the trainee by the throat, sneering that he foolishly let his guard down. The shadow then reveals this was his plan all along, baiting Leonard in close for the final blow. The promise to send him to hell. He charges a fatal blast of dark energy at point-blank range. But a new, powerful voice echoes through the battlefield, declaring that won't be happening. Suddenly, a gauntleted fist crackling with an immense, unknown power appears from nowhere. It's Commander Fabian, descending from the sky like a vengeful god to intervene in the fight. The fifth shadow can only scream in terror, completely blindsided by this new transcendent presence. With a single, devastating strike, the commander cuts through the villain to avenge his fallen men. Coughing on the ground, Leonard taunts the villain for being so desperate to kill him. He smirks, mocking the shadow for being too focused to notice Commander Fabian approaching. Leaving the monster utterly confused, the commander now stands over Leonard, formally apologizing for his late arrival to the battlefield. He praises the boy's astonishing growth, while the rescued knight captain offers his sincere gratitude for being saved. But Leonard, completely drained from pushing his body past its limits, can only ask if he can get some sleep first. The commander warmly agrees, telling the young hero to rest and recover his strength. His expression then hardens as he turns his attention to some critical unfinished business, because the fifth shadow is miraculously regenerating his bisected body, vowing that their fight is not yet over. Enraged by this inhuman obsession, Commander Fabian declares this is where it all ends. With one final, overwhelming attack, he completely annihilates the transcendent threat before it can recover. Commander Fabian realizes with horror that the fifth shadow's true objective was never him at all. In a final, desperate act, the transcendent being grabs Leonard, vowing to take the young prodigy down with him. Leonard is caught completely off guard, trapped in the epicenter of a chaotic self-destruct sequence. A blinding flash of light erupts from the battlefield, consuming everything in its path. But when the light finally fades, the knights discover that their hero has vanished without a trace. The commander grimly assesses the aftermath, deducing an incomplete mass teleportation to an unknown destination. He clenches his fist in regret, admitting he grew careless by assuming he was the only target. The rescued knight captain then voices a terrifying possibility the enemy wasn't after the commander, but Leonard. He concludes that the fifth shadow saw the young trainee as such a monumental threat that he abandoned all other principles to eliminate him. It was an unprecedented event, a mere apprentice forcing a being from the transcendence realm into a suicidal, one-way gambit. A veteran knight admits he's never seen an apprentice with such terrifyingly rapid growth, and realizes they might be witnessing the birth of a new legend for House Cardenas. Understanding the stakes, Commander Fabian is urged to immediately request reinforcements from the main house, a request he readily approves. With grim determination, the commander declares that they must find that boy, no matter what it takes. Meanwhile, far out at sea, Leonard floats unconscious amidst the wreckage, as a silent prayer for his safety is made. But even battered and adrift, the prodigy begins to stir, his immense life force refusing to fade. He finds himself washed ashore on the deck of a mysterious vessel, confused by the strange new ceiling above him. His senses slowly return, bringing with them the unmistakable feeling of a gentle rocking motion. His eyes snap open as he smells the sea, confirming he's trapped on a ship in the middle of nowhere. Suddenly, an unfamiliar woman's voice cuts through the silence, asking if Hes finally awake. Leonard is confronted by a mysterious woman who claims to have saved his life and now demands answers. With a sly smile, she introduces herself as Francis, the captain of a ship called the Aquamarine, and asks for his name. Wary, but with no other choice, Leonard prepares to accept her handshake and reveal his identity. He firmly grasps her hand, stating he is Leonard from the legendary Arcadia Empire. But his answer only brings more questions, as Captain Francis is shocked that he's come from so far away. Leonard simply calls it an accident, his face masking the true horror of his last battle. A fragmented memory flashes through his mind, the terrifying face of the fifth shadow being torn apart by spatial magic. His impossible survival raises immediate suspicion, as another crewmate wonders if he could be from the famous House Cardenas. The crewmate, Marion, analyzes his powerful physique, realizing that only a Cardenas could be so trained at his age. Hearing this, Leonard smirks, confirming his lineage, and coldly asking if his family name will be a problem. Marion warns Captain Francis to proceed with caution regarding the mysterious Cardenas boy, but their tense discussion is shattered by a violent crash, as a crewmate is sent flying. The injured man gasps in terror, recognizing the attackers as a notorious gang of thugs. Outside, the infamous Luciano gang, led by the vicious Luciano Peterson, begins a bloody rampage. Marion seethes with rage, realizing the attack was deliberately timed for the day of their critical council meeting. Amidst the chaos, Francis apologizes to a now-awake Leonard, telling him that his tour will have to wait. She and Marion quickly don their coats, telling him he is free to leave once recovered as they prepare to face the enemy head-on. Leonard is left alone in the room, his gear neatly prepared for him as the sounds of battle rage outside. But before Francis can depart, he calls out, his intense gaze demanding to know the real reason she saved his life. The captain freezes, her determined stride coming to a sudden halt. She turns back with a gentle smile, her conviction clear as she explains her simple code. She never abandons anyone who needs help. As Leonard watches her leave, his crimson eyes gleam with a hidden intensity. He calls out to Francis, pointing out that she's the one who really needs help right now. With the situation escalating, she and Marion stride purposefully down the long pier, but they're stunned to discover Leonard, now fully dressed, following, right behind. Their path is suddenly blocked by an arrogant gang leader, but Marion instantly draws her sword, refusing to waste time. The man's smug expression immediately twists into a mask of pure rage at her defiance. He shockingly grabs her blade with his bare hand, threatening her with consequences she can't handle. A cold voice suddenly cuts through the tension, identifying the thug as Luciano Peterson. Luciano shoves Marion aside like a dog, declaring this a conversation between masters. Finally, he reveals his true goal, demanding Francis hand over her prized ship, the Aquamarine. Luciano mocks Francis, calling her prized ship a wasted heirloom for a fallen family. But Francis stands her ground, coldly telling him her family's legacy isn't his for the taking. She defiantly declares that she will never hand over the Aquamarine. And with his patience gone, Luciano cracks his knuckles, warning them they're making things very difficult. Suddenly, before he can act, a hand clamps down on his arm with bone-shattering force. Leonard appears with cold fury in his eyes, calmly asking for permission to kill the man. Francis and Marion are completely stunned by his sudden, terrifying display of power. While Luciano's men scream in terror as their leader writhes in agony, his arm completely destroyed. Enraged, his second-in-command orders a full-scale attack, vowing to kill them all for harming his brother. In response, a silent, deadly arc of energy flashes through the air, promising a swift end. Leonard moves like a phantom, his blade a blur of blue energy that cuts through the chaos. With his sword already in hand, he closes the distance in a single heartbeat. He slams his hilt directly into the face of the charging second-in-command, ending the fight before it even began. The thug collapses instantly, leaving Francis and Marion to stare in disbelief at the one-sided massacre. Francis is completely stunned, wondering if this is the true, terrifying power of the legendary House Cardenas. Leonard then turns back to the writhing gang leader, mercilessly stomping on the man's other hand, pinning the helpless Luciano to the ground. He calmly asks the women how they want him to finish this. His cold, detached question leaves both Francis and Marion utterly speechless with shock and fear. Seeing their horrified expressions, Leonard innocently asks if something is the matter, completely oblivious to his own monstrous display. But Francis reveals a catastrophic complication. The man he just crippled is the illegitimate son of the supreme authority of Atlantis. Francis explains that this entire region is governed by the iron fist of the Atlantis Maritime Union Council, and the father of the man Leonard just crippled is the terrifying Pablo L. Orlando Peterson, a man who ranks among the top 5 of that very council, making this a far bigger problem than Leonard ever anticipated. Realizing the immense danger his actions have caused, Leonard calls out to the stunned captain. He declares that, for the time being, he will act as her personal bodyguard. In truth, he plans to stay by her side, to solve her problems while secretly gathering information for himself. Francis stares at the carnage surrounding them, barely able to comprehend his sudden offer, but her shock quickly melts into pure elation as she eagerly accepts his protection. With a firm handshake, the two forge an unlikely alliance born from brutal violence and political chaos. And with a confident smirk, Leonard seals the deal, fully aware that he has just stepped into an even bigger, more dangerous game. With the gang leader Luciano Peterson broken and defeated, the crew wonders what to do with him. But Francis reveals a shocking truth. They can simply leave him, as even his own powerful father has abandoned him. Leonard looks over the carnage with relief, realizing their problem has been solved, so long as they don't tarnish the family's name. With the matter settled, a confident step is taken forward as the group prepares to leave the scene. Francis now leads the way, declaring she has somewhere important to go, and is counting on Leonard for protection. Without a moment's hesitation, Leonard simply agrees, fully accepting his new role as her bodyguard. He then asks how to address her, and she surprisingly offers him the intimate nickname Fran. Leonard immediately uses the name, leaving her completely stunned by his directness. As she asks him to repeat it, a blush creeps across her face, realizing this new arrangement might not be so bad after all. Now united, the new allies walk along the waterfront, heading towards a grand city and an uncertain future. The former Sword Emperor is taken aback by the city's grandeur, a sight has never witnessed before in all his life. But Francis dismisses it as a city built on appearances, a grand facade that draws in ambitious adventurers from all over. She then points them toward a magnificent building, the central management office for all adventuring parties. Stepping forward, Leonard confidently registers their group as the Aquamarine Party, designated B7. A magical system instantly verifies Francis's identity, granting them immediate access to the exclusive Zephyrus Hall. A palpable energy hums in the air as they are guided deeper into the building. Francis reveals that this hall is a lounge reserved only for the elite B-rank parties, a tier of considerable power. With a resolute expression, Leonard follows her, ready to face whatever this new world throws at him. Their footsteps echo across a lavish carpet, signaling their entry into a realm of the rich and powerful. Leonard is stunned by the opulent interior, forced to question the true power scale of a B-rank adventurer in this strange new land. Leonard realizes this Aquamarine organization may be a far greater power than he ever imagined. When a staff member named Clara formally greets them to begin their party registration in the exclusive hall, she confirms that, with his addition, their party now officially consists of 3 members. Clara then asks the former Sword Emperor to declare his area of expertise for their records. But before he can answer, a nearby adventurer scoffs loudly, dismissing him as the captain's little toy. Leonard calmly asks Francis if he should take care of the man, but she simply waves it off as a common occurrence. Undeterred, the drunkard continues his insults, calling him nothing but a filler recruit for a tiny party. He then makes a fatal mistake, aggressively grabbing Leonard by the shoulder to intimidate him. In a blinding flash, an immense and terrifying power erupts, freezing the entire lounge in an instant. And before the man can even process what happened, a cold blade is already pressed against his throat. Looming over his defeated foe, Leonard coldly asks if everyone has now seen enough to judge his skill. The terrified staff member, Clara, stammers in agreement before nervously asking the all-important question, "Where is he from?" He hesitates for a moment, realizing he can't reveal his true origins, but knowing silence would be even more suspicious. Stepping forward with an unreadable expression, he prepares to give his answer as his new crewmates watch intently. He calmly declares he's from the Kingdom of Curtsies, a quick lie he conjured on the spot to avoid complications. With the false information recorded, he presses his hand to the document, finalizing the registration. A moment later, Clara hands the completed papers to a suddenly overjoyed Captain Francis, who can't contain her excitement. Leonard looks on, slightly confused by her emotional outburst and reminding her their business is now finished. Realizing she's lost her cool, Francis panics internally, worried about her dignity as a captain, but she quickly regains her composure, turning to formally welcome him to the Aquamarine Party, as Marion sighs behind them. Francis cheerfully dismisses him for the day, suggesting he explore the city at his leisure. Leonard politely accepts, saying he's looking forward to working with her, but with a faint smile, he reveals he has one small favor to ask first. Her curiosity piqued, the captain wonders what kind of request he could possibly have. The scene then shifts to a grand, imposing set of golden doors, hinting at a meeting with someone of great power. Leonard approaches his destination with a calm and steady stride. Waiting for him is a blonde-haired man, who reveals Francis had already set up this introduction. With a simple word of thanks, Leonard prepares to step into the unknown, but the man's eyes narrow, remarking that Leonard doesn't carry the air of a mage at all. Then, with a sudden snap of his fingers, a silent test begins. The powerful mage unleashes her energy, demanding to know why a swordsman is so desperate to learn about magic. Leonard calmly explains that after being consumed by a strange power, he needs to understand it to fight back. She listens intently, a thoughtful expression crossing her face as she processes his bizarre situation. Now understanding his true motive, the fourth mage, Esther, realizes he's not just another power-hungry swordsman. She then stands and reveals a simple method for even a warrior like him to grasp the fundamentals of magic. The plan is to make his body familiar with mana by absorbing a spirit stone engraved with a magic circuit. But as she presses the glowing artifact to his chest, Leonard protests that he doesn't actually want to use magic. Ignoring him, she forces the stone's energy into his body, assuring him this is the absolute fastest way. With a steely gaze, she declares that fulfilling this task is her duty. As a fellow member of the Aquamarine, she has to guide her new junior, or else face the wrath of Captain Francis herself. Leonard groans in agony as raw magical energy floods his body, shocking Esther, who realizes a normal person shouldn't survive this. Suddenly, the energy erupts from him in a violent surge, as she questions what kind of monstrous constitution he could possibly possess. The chaotic blue mana slowly begins to settle throughout the otherwise quiet room. Even the tea on the table ripples, with the lingering magical fallout from the explosion. Esther, shaken but composed, notes that the intense reaction has finally subsided. She cautiously asks the exhausted Leonard if he managed to pull through the ordeal. Panting, Leonard confirms that he's fine, though the experience was clearly draining. But inside, Esther realizes he didn't just endure the spell. He completely rewrote its flawed logic with his own draconic power. He explains he's far more than okay, revealing that he was able to reinterpret the spell engraved on the stone itself. She's left speechless as he names the spell Magic Missile, a beginner technique he has mastered in a way she thought was utterly impossible. Having completely absorbed the faulty spell, Leonard's body crackles with raw, reinterpreted mana. He calmly explains that he deemed the original magic inefficient, so he simply rewrote it into the form of a sharp dagger. The fourth circle mage is left speechless. He not only changed a spell's base form, something she can't do, but created 5 of them at once. But Leonard's ambition doesn't stop there, as he asks to see her own magic circuit, leaving her utterly confused. He declares with absolute confidence that he can see the flaws in her system, and knows exactly how to improve it. This unprecedented claim brings them to the legendary Atlantis Magic Tower, the heart of all magical knowledge. Inside, a high-ranking mage is drowning in research, desperately trying to manage the chaos of his work. He sighs in exhaustion, begging to be spared from any more troublesome matters that might come his way. But his plea is met by the stern gaze of the chief elder and 7th-tier magician, Jack Russell, who is far too busy for interruptions. Esther then cheekily reminds her master of his one and only disciple. Before Leonard steps up to introduce himself to the legendary mage, Jack Russell, the chief elder, impatiently demands an explanation for their intrusion. But Esther cuts straight to the point with a proud declaration. She has finally reached the 5th tier. The master is stunned, questioning how she suddenly overcame years of stagnation. Instead of answering with words, she offers a demonstration. Her hand igniting with raw power, she unleashes a massive fireball, channeling an incredible amount of magical energy. The spell immediately transforms, compressing into a spinning disc of pure destructive force to maximize its power. She then reveals the unbelievable truth. Leonard, a complete stranger, is the one who fixed her magic circuit. Suddenly, a wave of panic washes over her face as she realizes what she's done. The uncontrolled spell blasts across the room, while she frantically apologizes for her lack of control. But the chief elder is frozen in shock, realizing this boy somehow unlocked a 6th-tier skill in his disciple. The chief elder of the Magic Tower analyzes the impossible phenomenon before him with burning intrigue. He declares that what Leonard did, overcoming the very boundaries of magic, is a feat only achievable by one's own realization. Leonard, however, feels he's incurred an unrepayable debt, a weight from his past life. The master believes Esther brought Leonard here knowing his true potential as he walks away with a new plan in mind. Turning back, the 7th-tier magician makes an unprecedented offer for Leonard to become his personal disciple, but Leonard immediately refuses, declaring his unwavering commitment to the path of the sword. Undeterred, the elder instead grants him a reward beyond measure, unrestricted access to all the Magic Tower's knowledge. He sweetens the deal even further, promising a powerful alliance with Leonard's Aquamarine crew. A sly grin spreads across Leonard's face as he graciously accepts the incredible terms. With this new pact, the Aquamarine party has just secured the backing of one of the world's most powerful institutions. Back at Zephyrus Hall, Francis is in utter shock, barely comprehending that Leonard has single-handedly forged an alliance with the legendary Magic Tower. She ecstatically celebrates this monumental achievement, realizing their small crew has just gained the backing of a world power. But Leonard immediately cuts the celebration short, his attention drawn to a mysterious list of names. Frances explains her ambition to recruit powerful new members, admitting their current scope is far too limited. Without their ship, the Aquamarine, they would be nothing, struggling with even B-rank missions. A calculating look flashes in Leonard's eyes as he agrees they need stronger allies, hinting he has his own method for recruitment. A slightly confused Francis confirms the obvious, completely unprepared for his next move. Suddenly, Leonard points across the hall to a chaotic scene where a screaming man is being effortlessly dangled upside down by a lone woman. The man is pinned to a pillar by a single arrow, hurling vile insults at his captor, a silent half-elf warrior. But the archer, the infamous one-eyed Ninian, simply responds by knocking a menacingly glowing arrow, ready to end the confrontation permanently. The cold-hearted archer Ninian informs her victim he's lucky their confrontation is happening here. But just as she's about to finish him, another group of adventurers steps in, questioning if she's taking things too far. They attempt to intimidate her into joining their guild, using her sister's massive ransom as leverage against her. Suddenly, Leonard intervenes, declaring they are the ones who've crossed the line as he draws a bow, unleashing a torrent of raw power. His single shot creates a devastating shockwave that completely overwhelms the rival party in a one-sided display of force. The master archer herself is left speechless, demanding to know the identity of this mysterious powerhouse. With unnerving calm, Leonard simply introduces himself as a member of the Aquamarine adventure crew. Nearby, his own party members watch in disbelief, revealing he'd only just borrowed the bow moments before. He then extends a formal invitation to the stunned Ninian, promising she won't regret joining them. But inside, Ninian realizes his technique is on a completely different level from her own, an ancient art she now desperately wants to learn. A rival adventurer warns Ninian not to join the sinking ship that is the Aquamarine party, while his arrogant crony boasts about their own commander from the powerful Santa Maria crew. Suddenly, their hulking boss appears, silencing his subordinate with nothing but his overwhelming presence. He introduces himself as Commander Christopher Conrad, a man whose reputation is known by everyone. His crew scoffs at Leonard's group, dismissing them as nothing more than B-rank nobodies who wouldn't understand. But Leonard calmly assesses the commander, realizing the brute is just one step away from reaching a transcend stage of power. He knows a head-on fight would be a huge disadvantage, but a master archer like Ninian is a crucial asset he must secure for their naval battles. With cold resolve, Leonard decides he will make her their comrade, even if it means clashing with this monstrous commander. Just then, a memory surfaces of a small hand grabbing Ninian's, as a young girl's voice calls her big sister. The flashback reveals a younger Ninian with a small half-elf, the true reason for her desperate struggle for money. Ninian's tragic past is finally revealed, explaining that her half-sister Vivian was a spirit arts user with talent far beyond her own. Vivian was her only friend and family, a precious source of happiness that was destined to be shattered in an instant. A horrifying memory flashes back, showing her sister being brutally cut down in a spray of blood. Back in the present, Leonard connects the dots, realizing Vivian must have sent a desperate distress signal from the distant elves' dwelling. The flashback continues, showing the monstrous Commander Conrad presenting a contract to Ninian and coldly declaring that her sister now belongs to him. She desperately begged for Vivian's return, but the commander only mocked her inferior power. Laughing at her weakness, he cruelly dismissed her as a useless mutt and ordered her to get lost, leaving her utterly broken, consumed by despair. Ninian could only lament her own weakness, knowing she was the only one who could save her sister, but was powerless to do so. But suddenly, a figure steps forward, issuing a bold challenge directly to the Santa Maria. It is Leonard, who stuns the entire crowd by demanding a duel between their crews, with Vivian's contract termination hanging in the balance. Marion desperately tries to stop Leonard, pleading with her captain that he's about to start an all-out war with the Santa Maria. But Frances simply calls her crewmate's name, her face cold and determined as she watches the confrontation unfold. She reveals her true intention, recognizing this as a rare chance to recruit both powerful archer and a spirit arts user for their crew. However, Leonard turns to her, calmly asking her to trust him and leave this to him this one time. Seeing his unwavering resolve, Frances understands and agrees, placing her complete faith in his decision. Suddenly, Ninian grabs his arm, demanding to know why he's just standing there blankly. She pulls him forward, questioning if he's already lost his nerve after making such a bold declaration. The hulking commander scoffs at the greenhorn brat, enraged that someone so weak would dare to challenge him to a duel. He furiously demands to know what they could possibly bet. mocking that even 100 of their crews couldn't match the value of an elven spirit user, as Ninian looks on in despair. But then Francis steps forward with a shocking counter, betting not only the purchasing rights to the entire Aquamarine ship, but also their A-rank exploration rights, a wager that silences the entire hull. Commander Conrad is momentarily stunned by the insane bet, which Leonard calls some heavy covering fire. After a tense silence, Conrad accepts the wager but adds a new condition. The duelists must be strictly limited to members of the Aquamarine. He smirks, realizing this prevents the noble lady from calling upon a true swordmaster to fight in their stead. But Leonard immediately seizes the opening, declaring it will be a one-on-one fight between them, with no objections allowed. With the terms set, the hulking commander agrees, looking forward to the day he can crush the boy as the two crews glare at each other. Later, back at the Atlantis Magic Tower, a voice screams out in pure disbelief. A fist slams down in rage and frustration as the reality of their situation sinks in. Marion furiously explains that Conrad isn't just a brute, he's the commander of an A-rank crew and a magic swordsman. Even Frances trembles, admitting that while she knows the risks, his creepy attitude just made her so mad. Ninian calmly lays out their hopeless odds, stating that even if she and Leonard fought him 2-on-1, they still wouldn't stand a chance, and now there's no way to back out. As Ninian apologizes for dragging him into this impossible situation, Leonard simply says it's too late to turn back. But then, a surge of immense energy suddenly erupts from his sword. He reveals a level of power they've never seen, his hair turning white as he summons in a brilliant aura blade. Frances can only stare in utter disbelief at the impossible sight before her. She stammers, questioning how he can wield such a technique when he was supposed to be a mere third-stage fighter. He smirks, calmly explaining that he's simply never had a reason to reveal his true strength until now. Gripping his weapon, he declares with absolute certainty that in his current state, there's no way he will lose to Conrad. The captain is left speechless, trying to process the sheer scale of the power he was hiding all this time. Suddenly, her despair melts away into pure elation, realizing she was right to believe in him from the start. Filled with renewed hope, she tells him that since Conrad isn't quite at the swordmaster level, his victory is absolutely assured. Ninian anxiously points out a critical flaw in their plan. Conrad is a magic swordsman, and they have no countermeasures for his spells. But a calm voice from within the magic tower tells her there is absolutely no need to worry. The chief elder, Jack Russell, confidently declares that there's no way Conrad could ever be more of a genius than Leonard. His aide nods grimly, understanding the sheer gravity of the situation they've walked into. Jack then confirms their purpose for being there, asking if they need him to act as a witness for the duel. Frances urgently pleads with him, explaining that with the Aquamarine's fate on the line, they need his authority to prevent any foul play. The aide acknowledges their debt, reminding him that Leonard is Esther's benefactor, after all. With a shrewd glint in his eye, Jack agrees, admitting he also highly doubts Conrad will fight fair. With the magic tower's absolute backing secured, Leonard stands ready at the dueling grounds, sensing his opponent's arrival. His eyes blaze with crimson power as he locks onto his target, uttering the name Conrad with cold, final resolve. Behind the scenes, a far more dangerous player makes his move. As the powerful counselor Pablo summons Commander Conrad, the counselor reveals he's heard the news, seeing the duel as the perfect opportunity to finally get his hands on the Aquamarine. To ensure victory, he offers Conrad a secret elixir, a forbidden power-up that will temporarily grant him strength surpassing a swordmaster. But Conrad scoffs at the offer, arrogantly believing he can crush a mere brat like Leonard without any cheap tricks. Suddenly, a terrifying pressure fills the room as Counselor Pablo reminds him this was never a request, forcing the commander to his knees. Pablo makes the stakes clear. They cannot afford to miss this chance, and the Aquamarine must be obtained at all costs. With a sinister grin, the now compliant Conrad promises he will succeed, no matter what it takes. Meanwhile, Leonard steels his own resolve, equally determined to win this fight by any means necessary. The sun rises on a new morning, the fateful day of the duel, and in the center of the Bermuda Grand Auditorium, a venue whose true purpose is a brutal fighting arena, the two combatants finally face each other. The crowd is buzzing with excitement as one spectator grins, asking his friend how much he bet on the fight. But the friend scoffs, telling him not to get his hopes up, because the veteran Commander Conrad is guaranteed to win anyway. Whispers ripple through the stands that the challenger is just a brat, and that despite his potential, the outcome of this duel is already decided. Suddenly, the announcer's voice rings out, introducing the two combatants, the infamous Commander Conrad of the Santa Maria, and from the underdog Aquamarine, Leonard. As the two warriors lock eyes across the arena, the announcer declares that with the stakes so high, This duel requires an authoritative witness to oversee the proceedings, and to the absolute shock of the entire audience, that witness is revealed to be the chief elder of the Magic Tower himself, the legendary Lord Jack Russell. The powerful mage watches calmly from the stands, knowing this is exactly what Captain Francis had predicted would happen. A flashback reveals the true stakes, as Francis tells her crewmate Esther that she's betting the Aquamarine's entire fortune on this single duel. She begs a horrified Esther to be the one to place the massive wager, insisting this is their only chance to multiply their funds. Francis explains her insane logic. Since everyone will bet on the famous Conrad, the payout for a victory by the completely unknown Leonard will be an astronomical, life-changing sum. Back in the lounge, Francis confirms her insane plan to bet everything on Leonard, the ultimate long shot. But Leonard calmly reassures them that with the sword he received from the Magic Tower, there isn't even a 1 in a million chance he'll lose, trusting his absolute confidence. Esther finally agrees to stake the Aquamarine's entire fortune on his victory. Moments later, the announcer's voice roars through the arena as the duel officially begins. Commander Conrad immediately gets in Leonard's face, reminding the boy that killing in this ring isn't considered a crime. But Leonard is completely unfazed, coolly asking if the hulking commander is trying to scare him. Conrad's face twitches in pure fury, enraged that this brat is looking down on him until the very end. He roars that he'll turn that smug face into mincemeat as a terrifying, fiery aura explodes from his body. An overwhelming wave of pure power hurtles directly towards the seemingly outmatched challenger. But instead of defending, Leonard leaps directly into the heart of the inferno, meeting the devastating attack head-on. Confronted by the commander's fifth-tier power, Leonard realizes he has no choice but to immediately unleash a hidden trump card. He summons a top-grade artifact borrowed from the Magic Tower, a blade capable of channeling pure magic. In a brilliant flash, he imbues the sword with wind magic, intending to completely turn the tables on his opponent. The commander can only stare in disbelief, stunned that the boy he underestimated was a magic swordsman too. With his newfound speed, Leonard becomes an untouchable blur, weaving around the brute's clumsy attacks with ease. The sheer force of his movements shatters the very stone of the arena floor beneath them. Conrad is thrown completely on the defensive, desperately parrying a relentless storm of high-speed strikes. But just as he thinks he's getting a handle on it, Leonard's armor begins to crack as an entirely new power awakens. A sinister, dark purple aura suddenly erupts from his feet, rooting him to the spot with an unknown energy. Seeing his opening, Conrad roars that even he can't defy gravity and brings his electrified blade down for the killing blow. But instead of being crushed, Leonard's eyes ignite as a brilliant golden aura explodes from his body. The shockwave of pure power blasts through the arena, stunning the crowd into silence. Before the commander can process what's happening, a brutal punch sends blood flying from his mouth. Leonard follows up with a vicious downward slash, slamming the brute into the ground. He then mercilessly stomps his opponent's head, cracking the very stone beneath him. Conrad can only gasp in pain, completely overwhelmed by this sudden, impossible power spike. Now wielding two swords, Leonard calmly stands over the defeated commander. He admits it was careless to think he could fully withstand the lightning strike, calling Conrad conceited for not even drawing his sword. Pushed beyond all limits, Conrad pulls out a forbidden elixir, declaring he has no other choice. He screams in agony as a sinister dark power erupts, twisting his body into something monstrous. Consumed by a sinister power, the enraged commander vows that he will absolutely kill Leonard. Leonard is stunned, recognizing this sudden power surge is on the untouchable level of a swordmaster. The transformed brute lunges forward with terrifying speed, as our hero realizes his opponent had a final trump card prepared. In an instant, the monstrous commander is upon him, his glowing red eyes promising a brutal end. A devastating blow lands, sending a spray of blood across the battlefield from its sheer impact. But even as Conrad presses his assault with berserker fury, Leonard's unwavering resolve doesn't break. He expertly evades the follow-up strike, twisting away from the commander's clumsy yet powerful swing. With a cold fury, Leonard declares that playtime is over for this monstrous insect. Conrad retaliates, bringing down his sword, which is now coated in a terrifying dark aura. Yet Leonard simply smirks, realizing his opponent is finally getting serious by unleashing his aura blade, with his own blade ignited in a brilliant blue light. Leonard declares he accepts the challenge, as his overwhelming power surges forward with an earth-shattering roar. The two swordsmen clash in an explosion of pure energy that rocks the entire arena, but the exchange is completely one-sided, sending the monstrous Conrad reeling back in utter disbelief. The commander can't comprehend how a mere boy could possibly manifest an aura blade of this magnitude. With a final, devastating attack, Leonard summons a colossal dragon of pure energy to completely annihilate his foe. The battle ends with Leonard standing victorious over Conrad's broken form, but someone in the crowd declares this outcome impossible. An influential manager named Carmen furiously attempts to invalidate the match, claiming a magic swordsman could never lose like this. He panics, realizing his gamble on Conrad's victory, even with a forbidden elixir, has failed spectacularly. Desperate, he turns to a high-ranking official to protest, but his complaints are about to be shut down. A powerful voice cuts through the chaos as Jack Russell, the chief elder of the Magic Tower, questions if his authority is being challenged. The desperate manager turns to the elder for support, hoping the powerful mage will agree with his protest. But Carmen realizes his fatal mistake, as even his desperate attempt to invalidate the match was just another part of Leonard's master plan. With his role as the ultimate witness complete, the chief elder calmly walks away, leaving the shocking aftermath behind him. All eyes now fall on Leonard, the victor, who stands ready to claim his prize and settle the score once and for all. Meanwhile, back on the open seas, the Aquamarine crew awaits news of their captain's impossible gamble. Suddenly, word arrives that their proposal has been approved, a monumental step forward for their entire party. The crew celebrates their new status, finally able to explore A-rank sea areas, though their captain reminds there are still conditions to meet. Thanks to Leonard's overwhelming victory, their entire fortune has multiplied, and they are now flush with more gold than they've ever seen. The captain looks at her young bodyguard with sincere gratitude, and Leonard humbly accepts her thanks, his mission a complete success. Two new figures finally step aboard the Aquamarine, their long ordeal seemingly over. The master archer Ninian and her sister Vivian stand free at last, tearfully thanking Leonard for achieving the impossible. Vivian, a rare and powerful wind spirit arts user, introduces herself with a radiant smile full of newfound hope, but Leonard brushes it off as a matter of aligned interests, as Captain Francis formally welcomes them to the crew. The sisters still feel an immense debt, insisting there must be more they can do to repay him for their freedom. Francis warmly shuts them down, declaring that from now on, they are all simply comrades. She then tasks a flustered Marian with showing the powerful new recruits to their quarters. Later that night, under a quiet moonlit sky, Francis and Leonard find themselves alone on deck. Leonard senses her heavy mood, asking if she cleared the deck just for this private conversation. With a grave expression, Francis prepares to reveal the true, hidden reason she's so desperate to become an A-rank crew. Leonard confirms he can already guess the weight of her secret. Francis asks him to stay and listen, needing an anchor for the story she's about to tell. With a serious gaze, he agrees, ready to finally hear the truth behind her desperate quest. The scene suddenly shifts, jumping back 8 long years to the gilded halls of the Union Council. There, a secret meeting convenes beneath a swirling red vortex of pure chaotic energy as they debate the fate of a rift in the Fifth Sea. A scarred commander named Njord gives a dire warning, proclaiming that it's only a matter of time before their world is contaminated by the otherworld. But his plea is immediately shut down, with another councilman insisting the rift's status is being thoroughly managed. A sinister figure named Pablo smirks, confidently declaring there will be no problems for at least 30 years. Njord desperately argues that this is only true if no anomalies occur, a risk they cannot afford to take. But Pablo scoffs at his fear, revealing a chilling truth. He sees this impending doom not as a threat, but as an opportunity to secure even more power from the otherworld. The commander seethes with fury at the council's greed, and grabs Pablo by the collar, screaming at him for risking the world for mere profit. But Pablo coldly justifies his choice, revealing that those byproducts are the source of their city's wealth. He turns to the other councilors for support, but the room is filled with a deafening, complicit silence. With a smirk, Pablo knows the decision has already been made in a burst of helpless rage. The commander slams his fist down, his warning completely ignored. Realizing they are truly alone, he understands that no help will be coming from the Union, but his despair quickly turns to resolve as he gives a new command to prepare for departure. He makes a solemn vow that his crew, the Aquamarine, will be the ones to close the rifts themselves. With a roar of loyalty, his ship sets off into the dangerous seas, ready to face the apocalypse alone. The Aquamarine's magic circle flares to life, preparing them for a dimensional jump into unknown territory. The legendary ship surges forward on the open sea, heading towards an impossible destination. Suddenly, a massive rift of raw energy tears open the very fabric of the ocean. This was the original Aquamarine, an A-rank crew of legends with a 7th-tier magician and 3 transcendent beings led by the spirit knight Njord. 8 years ago, the council desperately called for him to return, selfishly complaining that his world-saving mission was hurting their profits. But Njord simply looked back at the corrupt city, deaf to their pleas as they whined about losing work. He coldly declared he would only return after closing the biggest rift of all, the world-ending Charybdis. His face was a mask of grim resolve, having made a choice that would cost him and his crew everything. As the terrifying vortex of destruction loomed before them, he calmly stated that its immense danger is precisely why they must be the ones to close it. And so, the lone ship sailed directly into the heart of the apocalypse, a suicidal charge to save a world that had completely abandoned them. The story returns to the quiet sea, a stark contrast to the apocalyptic battle that once raged there. As Leonard asks what went wrong, Francis explains that the original Aquamarine was once unbelievably strong, but a shadow of tragedy hangs in her eyes, hinting that their legendary power wasn't enough. Leonard listens with grim focus, realizing he is about to hear a truth buried for 8 long years. Back then, the victorious crew sailed through a sea of monster corpses, believing their impossible mission was finally over. Their commander, Njord, looked to the horizon, satisfied that he had saved the world from turning into a demonic hellscape. He smiled, joking that he was about to get an earful from everyone for taking so long. The commander then reveals his own daughter would be furious, turning to a small girl he calls Fran. A young Francis, holding her crewmate's hand, innocently asks her father if they are finally going home. But as he begins to say, of course, a catastrophic explosion erupts from below, engulfing the heroes in an instant. From the fiery chaos, a legendary enemy warship, the Moby Dick, suddenly emerges. Commander Njord realizes with horror that this was no accident, but a treacherous surprise attack, orchestrated by Pablo from the start. A terrified young Frances calls out for her father, shielded by her loyal crewmate Marion amidst the growing danger. With no time to waste, Njord entrusts his daughter's life to Marion, ordering them to escape to the docks at full speed. His loyal crewmates leap into action, preparing to hold the line against all enemies except the colossal warship. Meanwhile, the councilman Pablo smirks from afar, ordering his forces to crush the Aquamarine's will to fight right here and now. But Njord, bloodied and defiant, roars back in defiance, raising his brilliant sword against the overwhelming odds. He declares that the honor and unwavering will of the Aquamarine will not be broken. He vows that their legacy will be inherited, even if he has to sacrifice his own life to ensure it. And with that final promise, a second cataclysmic explosion consumes the hero, sealing his tragic fate. As Frances concludes her tragic story, her gaze hardens with resolve. She confesses that because of her father's sacrifice, she simply cannot give up. But the enemy is the entire Atlantis Union, so she offers Leonard an honorable way out of this impossible fight. Leonard, however, just smiles and instantly shuts down any thought of him leaving. In fact, he declares that a chance to cross swords with the truly powerful is exactly what he's been searching for. His eyes glow with a cold fire as he promises to show no mercy to the corrupt trash they will face. Frances is momentarily stunned into silence by his overwhelming and bloodthirsty conviction, but her shock erupts into a heartfelt laugh, realizing she's found someone truly special. Standing on the deck, she formally asks him to follow her as a true member of the Aquamarine. And with a determined gaze, Leonard accepts, ready to work alongside his new captain, Fran. Aboard their ship, the Aquamarine, a new alliance begins to take shape. Leonard, the Sword Emperor reborn, relentlessly hones his blade with a fearsome aura. His eyes burn with the cold focus of a man who has conquered gods. He spars with the master archer Ninian, a whirlwind of steel against a storm of glowing arrows. Even another new crewmate joins the training. Their first match a furious exchange of blows. Their blades meet with a deafening crash that echoes across the deck. But suddenly, the newly freed Vivian intervenes, stopping the duel with a single, almost lazy motion. Marion watches intently, realizing their teamwork will be the key to their impossible journey. Ninian herself admits that everyone is getting stronger at a terrifying rate. Finally, Captain Francis gathers them, announcing their guests have arrived, and it's time to move. A man named Benjamin, manager of the A-Class Hall, arrives to confirm the unbelievable rumors of Leonard's victory against Commander Conrad. Hez, sweating, barely comprehending how Leonard overwhelmed 2 top-tier B-Class fighters like Marion and Ninian so easily. With a high-level spirit mage also on the team, Benjamin has to admit their power is undeniably at the A-Class level, but Captain Francis cuts straight to the point, knowing there's a catch to their rapid rise. The manager explains that, while they meet the power requirements, their party is simply too small to begin A-Class missions. The solution is simple. They just need 2 more members for their crew. If they can find 2 more powerful allies, he promises, their promotion to A-Class will be immediate. And so, the hunt for new blood begins as the crew travels to a district with a far heavier atmosphere than they're used to. Leonard remains confident, telling Francis that the person they're here to recruit will be an incredible asset to their forces. But just as they approach their target, a sharp voice commands them to stop, setting the stage for their next inevitable confrontation. The crew is immediately surrounded by local thugs, who arrogantly question if these brats even realize whose territory they've just entered. Their leader sneers that this is Luciano's turf, and they won't go easy on them, a threat punctuated by the flash of his blade. But Leonard remains utterly unfazed, calmly stating that while he didn't come for a fight, he can't ignore a drawn sword. In a blur of motion, he closes the distance and lands a devastating first blow before the thug can even react. The man cries out in agony as the sheer force of the impact sends him stumbling backward in total disbelief. He continues to reel back, completely stunned by the sudden and overwhelming display of power. His weapon clatters uselessly to the ground, the sound echoing the complete shift in the balance of the fight. Leonard stands poised for the next move, his own blade already humming with a subtle and dangerous energy. He then brings his sword down in a clean, decisive strike that instantly ends the one-sided confrontation. His eyes glow with intense focus, silently acknowledging the speed and power behind his own attack. A massive shift there rips through the air, wielded by a grizzled mercenary who scoffs at Leonard's street-level skills. He declares that for a true warrior who lives and dies by the blade, this fight is nothing more than child's play. His chained weapon carves a deadly arc, forcing Leonard into a defensive crouch as Francis watches in shock. But Leonard remains utterly calm, a subtle smirk playing on his lips as he admits he was thinking the exact same thing. Suddenly, Francis cries out in stunned recognition, realizing the identity of their powerful opponent is Mr. Galano. The mercenary freezes, the name echoing from his past as he realizes the young woman before him is the little Francis he once knew. Leonard connects the dots, asking if this is the legendary Galano from Wailing, and Francis confirms their search is finally over. The tension breaks as Galano lowers his weapon, demanding to know why she would suddenly seek him out after all this time. With unwavering resolve, Francis declares her intention to revive the legendary Aquamarine crew, and insists that she needs his strength to do it. For he is the younger brother of Aquamarine's greatest hero, the legendary Dentoon of the Storm, and his legacy now calls him to action. With a desperate plea, Francis begs the legendary mercenary to join their cause, believing his strength is the key to regaining their former glory. But Galano coldly shuts her down, telling her to give up and go home. He reminds her of the impossible stakes, revealing that the old Aquamarine crew made an enemy of the entire continent of Atlantis. Scornfully, he asks if she expects him to succeed where even his legendary brother failed, and flatly refuses her request. The mercenary turns his back on them, declaring he has no interest in pursuing a path with no future. As he and his men begin to leave, he tells a stubborn Francis to find another way, ending their conversation for good. Francis is left crushed, realizing that her last hope to persuade him has completely failed. But just as she despairs, a calm voice tells her to wait just a moment. Suddenly, Leonard explodes into action, launching himself into the air and leaving a stunned Francis calling out his name. He lands with overwhelming force directly in their path, blocking the legendary mercenary's exit with an undeniable show of power. A stunned Galano demands to know what Leonard is doing, as the boy suddenly attacks with the mercenary's own spear. Leonard declares that if words have failed, he will persuade with his fists, landing a devastating blow that echoes through the room. The sheer force of the impact sends the legendary warrior flying backwards across the warehouse, standing over the fallen weapon. Leonard coldly calls out the mercenary's hypocrisy, questioning how he can speak of a future he can't even see for himself. Enraged and forced to his knees, Galano can only growl at the utter disrespect from this unknown boy. Shaking with barely contained fury, he demands to know what exactly Leonard is trying to accomplish. Leonard calmly replies that he will personally show him the path he is meant to walk. He then presents the spear, formally issuing a challenge that cannot be ignored. With a confident smirk, Leonard knows his spearmanship is inferior, but it's more than enough to provoke his target. Seeing the boy's skill but insulted by the challenge, Galano accepts the duel, telling him to bet his very life on it. The duel begins with an explosive clash of weapons that echoes through the entire warehouse. Galano's spear flies through the air, just the opening move in this high-stakes battle, but Leonard effortlessly dodges the attack, using the spear's own shaft to counter the veteran warrior. The legendary mercenary is stunned, realizing with disbelief that this kid is somehow reading his every single move. Before he can recover, Leonard lands a punishing kick square in his face, staggering the warrior. He then coldly states that Galano's spearmanship would be excellent, if only he hadn't completely neglected his training. Leonard follows up the insult by easily parrying another desperate strike from the mercenary. Enraged by the complete and utter humiliation, Galano roars for him to shut up as his aura flares wildly. But the boy's words trigger a painful memory of his brother, the master who showed him his path but is now gone. Suddenly, his blindfolded eyes widen in pure shock as he senses something truly impossible coming from his opponent. Leonard channels the spectral image of his master, correcting his flawed technique on the fly. He recalls the precise instructions to keep his grip loose and unleash all his strength at the exact moment of rotation. With newfound clarity, he grips the spear as his aura surges with terrifyingly controlled power. And then he unleashes a perfect thrust, a blinding flash of energy that rips through the air. The legendary mercenary Galano can only watch in absolute astonishment at the boy's sudden evolution. The force of the blow shatters the very ground where he stands, a testament to a level of mastery he never thought possible. A profound realization dawns on the veteran warrior as he finally understands what he's witnessing. For the first time in years, he feels the stagnant river of his own power begin to flow again, reignited by the boy's display. His pride shattered and his spirit renewed, Galano humbly thanks Leonard for the lesson and asks for more guidance. With a knowing look, Leonard simply agrees, having not just won a fight, but a powerful new ally. Leonard offers to continue their duel until the legendary warrior is satisfied, and sometime later, the sun rises over the city. With Galano now walking obediently beside his new, much younger master, suddenly, Francis spots them and calls out in complete disbelief, remarking that the once weary mercenary now looks completely refreshed. Galano explains he's found a true teacher, feeling fired up after his overwhelming defeat. Leonard confidently declares that Galano will become an excellent combatant, perhaps even surpassing his legendary brother. Stunned by this rare praise, Francis questions if men really become friends by beating each other up. Leonard simply states that he enjoyed himself for the first time in a long while. Seeing her chance, Francis smiles, ready to ask the now humbled warrior to join her crew once more. Francis makes a formal offer, asking the humbled Galano to join her crew, just as her father once recruited his legendary brother. With Leonard watching on, she extends her hand, officially inviting the warrior to become a member of the Aquamarine. Galano can no longer refuse, sealing the deal with a firm and meaningful handshake. The B-rank adventurer then swears a solemn oath, pledging his unwavering loyalty in the name of the sea. Leonard knows this victory brings them one step closer to their A-rank promotion. But his ambition is limitless, as he immediately decides they must recruit a powerful magician next. Their search for new allies leads them to a luxurious and unfamiliar hall. Inside, two mysterious figures comment on the Aquamarine's base. Surprised that a certain master would deign to visit, Francis is stunned into silence, recognizing the powerful newcomers as Elder Russell and Miss Esther. Stepping forward, Leonard confronts them directly, demanding to know why they've appeared so suddenly. Elder Russell reveals his true purpose, explaining that he heard their goal is rift exploration. He elaborates that his own research is on rifts, and he requires various specimens that only adventure crews can provide. But Leonard instantly realizes the supply has been cut off by the Union Council, a deliberate move by a man named Pablo. Leonard's aura flares as he understands this is a plot to manipulate market prices by restricting the flow of byproducts. Cutting to the heart of the matter, Leonard asks what exactly the old scholar wants from them. With a confident snap of his fingers, the powerful mage begins to reveal his proposition. He offers to join their explorations, promising them access to far more than just simple byproducts with his expertise. Esther is left completely stunned, questioning if the renowned scholar is truly serious about joining their humble crew. Their captain, Francis, carefully considers the offer, deciding he can't be a true crew member but can board as a guest researcher. She concludes that his outstanding combat abilities make him a powerful, temporary ally for the Aquamarine in times of need. Elder Russell confidently presents his final offer, questioning if the terms are not more than sufficient for Leonard and his crew. Leonard calmly assesses the situation, knowing the scholar's combat power is unquestionable, and his mere presence is a deterrent to any would-be enemies. With the deal sealed, he hands over a list of available rifts, officially beginning their dangerous new partnership. Esther can barely contain her excitement, immediately asking if they can set out for the listed location. Leonard gives a simple, resolute confirmation, his mind already calculating their next move. As they part ways for now, Elder Russell wishes the entire Aquamarine crew good fortune in the battles to come. Wasting no time, the Aquamarine sets sail, cutting through the waves towards their high-stakes objective. Out on the vast open ocean, their journey into the unknown truly begins. On deck, the legendary mercenary Galano sighs in frustration, realizing he hasn't even had a chance to properly greet everyone yet. But Miss Esther just laughs, teasing that his infamous impatience hasn't changed one bit since the old days. Miss Esther's playful expression shifts as a serious thought crosses her mind. But she quickly greets the legendary mercenary Galano, marking that his refreshed appearance will surprise everyone. Galano, however, wastes no time on pleasantries and immediately demands to know their destination. Leonard finally briefs him on their mission, a rift with a spatial scale of C and a difficulty rating of B. Then he adds a chilling detail: the danger level is an unexpectedly high B+, implying a hidden threat. Their target is revealed to be a swirling vortex in the 5th Sea area, the notorious lair of the Sea Orcs. Deep within this abyss, a monstrous horde of battle-hungry orcs lies in wait, their roars echoing from the darkness. As the Aquamarine plunges into the rift, the system confirms its official B-rank difficulty. But upon entering, Leonard realizes the true scale of the dimensional tier is far greater than he ever imagined. Yet, instead of fear, a look of calm calculation settles on his face as he analyzes this overwhelming new battlefield. Leonard senses something is off about this rift, but Miss Esther confidently announces that everyone is ready to proceed. She lays out the mission's true objective: a reconnaissance run designed to give the crew invaluable combat experience. The formation is set with the legendary mercenary Galano leading the charge and a new archer named Ninian covering the rear. While Esther assigns herself to a support role, Captain Francis watches on with a serious expression, analyzing the plan. But in a shocking twist, Esther hands complete command of the mission over to Leonard, trusting his judgment above all else. She issues a final, critical order: if even one person objects to Leonard's command, the entire team must retreat immediately. With the high-stakes plans set, she prepares to give the final signal for their dangerous descent. Then, with a cheerful push, she sends Leonard plunging into the churning chaos of the rift below. Leonard, completely unfazed, simply declares he's going first, accepting his role as the tip of the spear. The rest of the crew, including Galano, can only watch in stunned disbelief as their new commander dives in completely alone. Leonard calmly tells his shocked crew not to rush as he plunges headfirst into the unknown abyss. Suddenly, a colossal wave of icy energy erupts from below, marking his chaotic point of entry. The rest of the crew is then inexplicably teleported into the sky, falling helplessly and completely disoriented. Leonard immediately calls out Esther, who can only offer a panicked apology for her massive blunder. Realizing her mistake, she quickly unleashes a powerful glaciate field spell around the entire falling team. The magic instantly freezes the ocean surface below them, creating a solid landing platform out of nothing. Leonard lands perfectly on the frozen sea, completely unfazed by the near-fatal drop. He effortlessly catches Captain Francis, remarking that a sudden plunge into the ocean was certainly unexpected. Ninian, however, is shaken, warning that they nearly died the very moment they entered the rift. Just then her instincts scream as she senses a new, immediate threat approaching from the dark waters below. Ninian's warning comes to life as monstrous sea orcs erupt from the icy depths with a furious roar. From below the frozen surface, a volley of deadly spears rains down on them, launched by enemies riding monstrous sea beasts. But Leonard moves in a blur, his sword deflecting every projectile with impossible speed as he calmly assesses the enemy numbers. His gaze remains cold and unwavering, the mind of the Sword Emperor already calculating a path to victory against overwhelming odds. Meanwhile, Miss Esther's magic surges, raising a colossal ice bridge from the sea to carry them toward the island. The enraged sea orcs give chase, swarming onto the frozen path in a desperate attempt to slaughter the crew. Ninian realizes their terrifying strategy, seeing that the horde is trying to completely surround them on the narrow bridge. The crew is forced into a desperate defensive battle, fighting for every inch on the treacherous ice. One of the crewmates stumbles back wounded, shouting that their disadvantage on the open sea is becoming fatal. Esther screams for them to hold on for just 5 more minutes, a massive, shadowy entity manifesting behind her as she prepares an even greater spell. A monstrous sea orc lets out a guttural roar, its eyes burning with pure rage. But Leonard calmly tells Esther to focus on her magic, trusting his crew to hold the line. With a powerful stomp, he shatters the ice beneath him, launching himself forward. He then plummets towards the open sea, leaving his stunned crew behind on their frozen platform. His comrades can only watch in disbelief as Ninian remarks that he's always full of surprises. Leonard's strategy is simple and brutal: crush their leader and break their morale. He dashes across the surface of the ocean, a feat that should be utterly impossible. Soon he confronts a massive sea orc, questioning if this is the leader he seeks. With his target identified, he raises his sword, preparing to end this fight in a single blow. But just as he's about to strike, his eyes widen in sudden, complete shock. A massive, chained fist comes crashing down, and the true scale of the beast is revealed as it swings its colossal weapon at Leonard. But he, with impossible grace, weaves through the deadly arc of the attack. He doesn't just dodge. He uses the monster's own weapon as a springboard, running along the chain. The Sea Orc leader roars in fury, whipping the chain back with all its might. But suddenly, the weapon jerks to a dead stop in mid-air. Leonard has seized the chain, redirecting the momentum of a creature 10 times his size. The lynx groan under the strain as he forces the weapon on a new trajectory. With a final pull, he slams the massive spear into the ground, leaving the beast completely disarmed and wide open. Looking down at his stunned foe, he calmly thinks that this move will be a good lesson for the legendary spearman, Galano. As a final lesson, Leonard uses the beast's own chain to brutally slam Galano into the ground. The legendary mercenary instantly understands the warning about recklessly throwing his weapon, but instead of shame, Galano roars with newfound fury as his entire body erupts with dark power. With the battle won, the crew finally arrives at the mysterious island, its shores lined with jagged ice. They take their first steps onto the sand, completely unaware of the true danger that awaits them. Miss Esther stares in horror, realizing the island's entire scouting party was wiped out in an instant. But just as the crew wonders what to do next, Leonard is suddenly overcome by a sinister aura. He clutches his chest in agony as his heart begins to pound violently against his ribs. His very soul is screaming a warning that deep within this land, a great disaster is lurking.